Thanks for coming. Come on in. Do you want a beer?
And we're going to start winning again.
Welcome to the Midwest Sense Podcast, where we make sense of it all, brutally. I'm your host, Andrew, and we're here to give you a voice. Are you sick of the Midwest being ignored? Are you tired of Middle America having no voice? Obviously, we need another podcast with a bunch of white dudes giving hot takes from the flyover states. I think you found your new home. Hide your kids and maybe the wife. Grab that beer. You're going to need it, and join us. Solving all the world's problems is going to be a group project.
Live from Beyond Good Reason Studio.
Hello, Midwest!
You can find us at themidwestsense.com. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instant Grandma, Twitter, TikTok. Give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, a tickle, a slap, and whatever else people are doing online. We'll be coming out with a new episode every week, live from Beyond Good Reason Studio. Welcome back to another Friday episode of Midwest Sense. Is there anything worse than a warm public toilet seat?
A wet public toilet seat.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. We figured it out. Answers being given already. Let's get right into it. Today in the studio, we have with us the miserable Minnesotan, Ben. How you doing, Ben? Where can we find you?
You can find me at the Miserable Minnesotan on YouTube for all your Vikings misery.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming in.
There's potential to be more this April.
Always more.
Stay tuned.
It's never ending. And in the other corner, we have Uncle Bustin. How you doing, Uncle Bustin? What do you have for us today?
Doing great. I'm happy to be here, but you won't find me here. You'll find me over there at the bar.
All right.
At the bar.
What's that old Bill Clinton? He could convince you that he's not here. What is here? Here is just...
What even is here?
What even is here? Here is just there without the tea.
Drink at that institution.
I was not here.
I am your host, Andrew, and welcome to Midwest Sense. Let's get right into it. How was everyone's week? Any notable items?
I don't know,
Easter.
man.
We had Easter recently.
That was good. Always a great holiday.
I've got something to complain about that, linking to the last podcast. Easter, commonly you go out of town, see relatives. We drive up to see the Outlaws. And out on the highway, it's about an hour and a half drive. And I'm a left lane cruise control guy. And I get over. If you come up on me and you're going faster than me, great. I get over and I let you pass.
Right.
I get over to the right lane because news to everyone here in the Midwest, the left lane is what they call the passing lane. It is the lane that you pass in. You don't go around somebody on the right. That person moves over for you and they go on the left-hand side to pass you. This is important for a couple reasons. One, that's an emergency vehicle lane. Essentially, either you're having an emergency or you've got flashing lights. That's what the left lane is for. People here don't get that.
That's true.
People here don't get. I'm only. I'm not even halfway done with my drink, and I'm already riled up about this.
The other thing they don't do is when there's cops on the side of the road, you're supposed to go to the other lane.
Right.
Never happened. But
we slam on our brakes and we got to gawk at them.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is just going to cause another accident.
It's unreal. And everyone's
crazy.
Always got to look at the accident. And it slows down traffic for like 30 minutes.
So here's my problem with the passing thing. So plenty of people pass me. That's great. I should not see you again. There's no reason once you pass me, there's no reason I should see you again. Almost every single person that passed me on Easter, I saw again. And let me remind you, I use cruise control. I'm driving a consistent speed.
You also use a tracking device to find these people.
No, I just know that, okay, there's the dick in the pickup truck. All right, he's riding my tail. Cool. I will get over for you. Yeah. And then sooner or later, I'm passing them. How does this work? How does that happen? That means you did not maintain a consistent speed. In fact, the speed that you were implying you were going before
It's a lie.
You were a liar. You were a liar on the road. That drives me nuts. I should not see you again. Once you pass me, I'm driving at consistent speed. There's no reason for me to catch up with you. That means that I'm driving faster than you, behind you, in order for me to catch up with you again. You have no business passing anybody.
You want to know my favorite scenario, though, is when you find that guy who's just speeding. Sometimes I've been this person, and you just get behind them, and they're your cop barrier.
Yep.
So you're just following them. I followed someone for probably 80 to 100 miles in Colorado, just going super fast. And I was like, well, if they slow down, I'm slowing down. I'm not getting the ticket. They're going to get the ticket before me. And it was a dream scenario. I was going probably 90, 95 the entire way through eastern Colorado.
That's awesome. I consistently look for the brake lights ahead of me because, you see brake lights. All right, it's probably a speed trap. And then the other thing that I saw on the road this morning, maybe we're not ready to have this conversation yet, but dogs in the car. Fine. Okay. I don't own a dog. Used to be a dog fan. I don't know. I've got kids now. I feel like that's the equal exchange, right? You upgrade from dog to actual human, right. And the people who own dogs tend to treat them like a little human.
I've never met...
driving past this guy on the highway.
Yeah.
Where do you think the dog is?
The dog is on his lap, and it should never be on his lap.
The dog is on his lap in the driver's seat.
I don't care
with
how
the paws
small.
On the steering wheel.
I don't care how small your dog is.
Yeah.
It should never be on your lap
small.
while you're driving.
This dog was not small. It was some type of poodle, medium-sized dog.
That should be a driving violation.
To your point,
probably a 45-pound dog on his lap.
You've never met someone with kids that calls their dog a fur baby.
Right.
It's always the single person who's probably never going to have kids, who's adopted the stray.
And there's a good reason for that. They probably shouldn't have kids. Because think about this.
So true.
Is my kid on my front seat when I'm cruising at 75 down the highway? Is he sitting on my lap?
Right.
No, he's strapped to death in the back.
Could you imagine getting
move.
in an accident too, Justin? You'd smash the windshield and your dog would be exploding.
The dog is the barrier between you and the airbag.
So sad.
The airbag pops the dog right in your face. You're just a mess of fur and guts.
You're just like, whoa.
What a hazardous
That was a lot of kibble he ate this
Here's
morning.
the deal. I will make a deal with people on the road. I will concede to the dog being on your lap in the driver's seat when people start using the left lane as the passing lane. That's where I'll concede.
I think you're giving up too much.
I don't think that'll ever happen in the Midwest.
You get to have that dog
too.
when flow of traffic makes sense. There you go. That's where I'll concede. Until then, get off the road. Get off the road. And then to segue into what I think we're prepared to chat about, driving home from work today, see a family walking their dog. What kind of dog do we think they're? The family, mother, father, child, and then the dog.
Bull.
I bet it was a loving, loyal pit bull.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Wrong.
It was a Rottweiler.
Oh, good.
So, but right in the same family.
Yeah.
Right in the same vein.
The pit umbrella, right?
Have at it, Bustin. I don't think anybody, I don't care, family, not family, single dude, you got no business owning a pit bull or a Rottweiler. I know all the PETA people are going to come out and it's all about the owners, man. It's all about how you train them. They're great family pets. You just need to teach them the demeanor of being around the family. Tell that to all the little kids' faces that have been ripped off from these dogs.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is you can't say it's all about the owner unless you are the first owner. And even then, if it's not a pure breed, you don't know what it's mixed with. And honestly, and this may be a weird comparison, but you see this in adopted children. It's not about the parents who adopted them, maybe even adopted them from, infancy, but whatever was wrong with the parents that created that child, and then they put it up for adoption, you see a lot of mental illness and strange patterns of behavior that have nothing to do with the family that is attempting to raise that child.
Very, very stupid people.
I can just hear all of the people trying to get us canceled from comparing dogs to
I'm comparing
dangerous
adoption.
breeds of dogs to adopted kids.
I'm comparing adoption.
But I agree. I would.
But you get the point that I'm saying.
I concede to your point. Absolutely. Because I know families, and I know this is anecdotal evidence, but I bet there's a study done on the trajectory of kids who are adopted and where their life ends up. And even kids that are adopted as newborns, no contact with mom or dad. I wonder what the correlation is where they somehow end up in the same lifestyle as their parents, even though they've never met their biological parents.
Even if they're adopted into wealthy families.
And I have two very close friends that I grew up with. That's exactly the route that they took. They were adopted. They were brothers adopted at birth, as far as I remember, as far as I know. And both of them they were adopted by upper middle class family.
Right.
These parents gave them everything. They had a private Christian education, sent to expensive private schools. They both were kicked out of the private school, sent to public schools because they didn't have an option, kicked out of the public school. Both of them ended up on the street. And I'm not kidding when I say ended up on the street. The one kid was living under a bridge. And I actually found him. I was driving past him on the highway. I hadn't talked to him in 6 or 7 years. It had been since high school since I saw him.
So his folks, what happened to his you probably don't know the whole story.
I haven't seen them. I don't know. I just know that the kids got wrapped up into drugs and the whole kind of like gang, pseudo gang life, as much as you can get involved in that as a suburban kid. And then, driving on the highway, I see the kid walking on the side of the road, and I stopped and picked him up. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm walking to work. I'm like, okay, at least you got a job. That's good for you. Where are you living? And he's like, well, wherever. What?
That's tragic. And
is that supposed to impress me?
And that's the whole nature. I've got some interesting stuff with the dog element too, but that's the whole nature versus nurture argument. And I've always felt, and maybe it's just because of like the classes I've taken and everything, but even just like internally, that nurture has a lot to do with your upbringing.
Absolutely.
But the older I'm getting, I do realize there is a strong nature element to this as well.
Absolutely.
And the sad thing is, I do feel like adoption is a good thing. We shouldn't have orphans out there. It's a commandment in the Bible to take care of widows and orphans, right? But it is something you have to use a lot of wisdom and have to be a very internally put together person before you take a kid into your house. And the sad thing is the story you just shared. And
these were not inexperienced parents. They had had 3 children of their own that had already gone through the high school years.
Okay.
And before anybody jumps in and is like, oh, well, so they were old and burnt out. No, not at all.
They were fresh.
They were excellent parents. In fact, the one kid, was very interested in guitar, wanted to get into music, and was very talented. Like, he picked up music in a way that I wish that I was able to. And his dad spent, and his dad is blue collar, he was like an electrician or something. His dad spent a week every night researching guitars. Not the kid, the dad did, because he knew that his son was into this.
To relate.
He researched guitars and then went out and bought his kid a Gibson SG, and that's something I remember being jealous.
Yeah. And turn on some AC/DC.
I just remember being jealous because, my parents allowed me to play music,
but they never tried to relate to you that way.
They were never into it. They didn't care about it.
You would have your little wings would have flown.
Oh man, I would have been thrilled.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm talking about, because I have this.
My dad researching guitars, that would have been unheard of.
That doesn't bring about good rock and roll music. There's no conflict, no tension.
Exactly, that's true.
But I know multiple families that adopted and went through same situation as that. And the real tell is, look at the other kids that the family raised.
Right.
How did they turn out?
Good, well-adjusted kids.
That's always the challenge, even if you do have just biological kids. It's, we all, I don't know if you have a sibling or multiple, but I can tell you from my own experience, my siblings are significantly different in their nature than I am. Same with you, Drew.
Yep.
The dog thing I feel is a little different because a dog is an animal and animals can be trained. And I used to be very much on the side of, because I adopted a dog at one point. It was the best dog I ever had, was able to train her. She was a lab. So it was like,
there you go. See?
But and then I I get married to my wife now, who works in the emergency room as a nurse. And she's like adamant, I will never, ever have a pit bull. And I was like, why is that? Because I've seen kids come in with bitten up, and then I look at the stats. So there's this website called dogbite.org. And this is
shout out to dogbite.org.
It says some dogs don't let go. And that's the scary thing is like pit bulls are still animals at the end of the day. And they have such a strong bite. Like sometimes they just literally can't let go. Their brains are like set to do something.
Well, and all you got to do is look at a pit bull's head. Well, look, their heads and their jaws are massive.
And they're muscular dogs.
I've heard that it's a myth that they have a locking jaw, but to your point, they don't let go. And that is not a training thing. That is a breed thing. You cannot train that out of them.
Let
me
just explain this. This was nuts to me. So the data here is a 15-year U.S. dog bite fatality chart. So from 2005 to 2019, there was 521 Americans that were dead due to a dog bite injury.
Wow.
Do you want to guess the percentage that, let's just say the percentage for German Shepherd, which is a common attack dog if you need it?
What do you mean percentage of
those fatalities that were from I just want to give another dog breed first.
40%.
4.2%.
Oh my word.
What about Rottweiler?
I'm going to guess that is 20%.
That was 9.8, but they distinguish Rottweiler from Pit Bull. So what do you think Pit Bull was?
Now I'm going to bet high. I'm going to think 80%.
So 66.4%, or 346 of the 521 deaths were due to a Pit Bull.
And I'm guessing that's the highest percent?
By far. The second highest one was Rottweiler.
Okay.
So to me, that comes back to, again, can you have a good dog that's a pit bull? It lives nicely its whole life. It dies. It's fine. Yes, you can. But
to me, that would be an anomaly.
Why are we, what I don't get is why do you keep, perpetuating the breed's existence?
Sure.
I mean, who's out there? Like pit bulls are in every shelter, right? There's so many mixes of them. Why do you, I understand if you want to buy like $1,000 golden retriever, that's just going to be a big lovey-dovey dog. Why do people keep breeding pits?
I got a theory.
I mean, I think they're
got a hot take.
Not neutered, so and they're in the poor parts of the country, so there's that. But.
Yeah, well, I got a hot take on that this will push us towards cancellation too. My hot take is that the owners of pit bulls are literally people with a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. Like before we had these stats, fine, it's whatever, a dog's a dog and we got to learn.
And these are to try and protect people. It's not like this.
Now that we have these stats, they're like kind of what you're getting at. There's no excuse to own this dog. And it's so bad that I know that insurance companies, that's the first question on a homeowner's application is, do you own a dog from these breeds? And then they list the breeds. Pit Bull is right up on top with Rottweiler. What's the other one? Doberman is another one. And if you own one of those breeds, two things are going to happen. Most likely the first, which is you are uninsurable. They do not want to insure you. And I know in our state, we've actually limited the amount that will pay out from a dangerous dog bite. So there's a story from years ago. You've got a section on your homeowner's policy that's designated to liability. So it's personal liability. You have a friend fall off your deck and they break their spine and they're paralyzed from the waist down. They're probably going to sue you, and it's not such a bad thing. The suit is for them to gain some monetary value back now that their life's destroyed, and hopefully it's going to all come out of your homeowner's policy, and it's subject to a minimum of $300,000 on your homeowner's policy. That's like usually the base minimum, but. There's an exclusion in there, a limit where they actually limit the payout. So if you have a friend over and a dog bites them, the payout is limited to $25,000. They limit their exposure. The company limits their liability, saying that if you have a dog and they bite somebody, the most we're going to pay out is $25,000. Don't go to Google and Google image search dog bites on kids, because it's horrendous. It's not arms, it's faces.
Well, here, let me read you a couple quotes from here too.
Faces that have been destroyed from dogs. That payout would be absolutely astronomical, because $25,000 is the initial hospital visit.
Well, let me paint a little picture. This has quotes of like people who are victims. This was a Fort Dodge police officer. This is again from dogbite.org. Pieces of her were everywhere. They were eating her. I bet if they did autopsies, she's in their guts. And then it says, this other person, Shante Phillips, says the dogs bit a pretty big hole out of his arm and tore his artery. So he lost a lot of blood. He's on dialysis. He has to keep getting transfusions. They cut off his right arm. This 911 caller said they saw dogs dragging around an object and turned around and then discovered that object was a human being.
Oh my gosh.
And it just gets worse. I don't even want to go into the kids of the situation. I mean, it's just horrific.
Yeah.
And so you should have a healthy caution of things that are dangerous. But we live in a world, like we were talking about earlier with the other story we'll get to at another time. People just don't believe that danger exists because we live so virtually. That's my take.
Right. I would agree with that. And full disclosure, I owned a German Shepherd Siberian Husky mix when I was in high school.
Same dog. Yep.
And I remember meeting your dog.
Sounds like a cool dog, truthfully.
And you know what? I got my dog from my great grandpa. He was up here, ended up in like hospice, and then between hospice and hospital and hospice and hospital, and then eventually passed away. Well, during all that time, I took ownership of the dog, and he was a World War II vet. This dog was like militarily trained, never needed a leash. The dog took a immediate liking to me. By my side, didn't matter if there was another dog, didn't matter if there was squirrels. I remember taking the dog to the park, and I'd have a leash on me, never used it. I remember being at the park throwing a Frisbee to this dog. I'd never owned a dog that I could chuck a Frisbee as far and as hard as I could, and the dog would run off from me.
That's what I had with my lab,
bring it back. No distractions, no chasing things, no barking, no nothing. And I'd have people at the park yelling at me, "Hey, get a leash on that dog." Yeah, while yours is over there yipping like a maniac and mine's minding its own business. Are you serious?
Right.
But again, full disclosure, the dog did bite somebody, and my parents made me get rid of it after that. And I'm sure the Humane Society put the dog down. But the bite was not bad. It was not like getting bit by a dangerous breed dog. The bite was a warning.
More of a warning, yeah.
It was a warning. And I was broken up. I was tore up about this because
I would be.
The rule was that the dog's territory was our laundry room. And that's where her bed was. That's where, she slept in my room with me at night. But, if we ever had to go somewhere or we just wanted to put the dog away, we would stash her in the laundry room. And it was a decent sized room, washer and dryer in there and everything. And she had a bed and she had her food and water in there. And the rule was you don't go into the laundry room unless Drew or mom or dad are with you. That was the rule because I was the oldest. We all had younger kids. Well, one of my sister's friends doesn't listen to the rule, goes into the laundry room. I'm not even home.
Scares the dog, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so the dog's like, well, who the heck are you? And so the dog nips her hand and it left those like purpley bruises, didn't break skin. And of course, she's I don't know how old she was at the time, maybe 9, 10. So she's crying and she's all scared because the dog nipped her. And my mom was pregnant at the time. So my mom's losing it. Like, we got a dangerous dog in the house. And, and then of course I'm in tears and they're like, yeah, you got to get rid of the dog, man. And so, so I ended up bringing the dog to the Humane Society, and then, I don't know, a year or two later, we ended up getting a golden doodle, a golden retriever and a poodle mix. And then when that dog grew up, she nipped at everybody. Yeah. And
that sucks, dude.
and it wasn't like bad nipping, but it was just like sometimes playful, sometimes leave me the heck alone, I got a bone. And so that just made me even more angry because it's like, okay, so
that's bad training. The first
Yeah.
one was territorial. It was a warning. That's
I agree with
instinctive.
you.
The second one, that's just poor training. It's nipping when it's playing. It's nipping when, it's
And
being
most
testy.
people,
Yeah.
so the other thing too about the nature versus nurture argument. So say you could train the pit, which people do. I mean, like you do find pits that are just dopes, and they're lazy and they're fat and they're old.
They're just waiting to snap. I
But-
still think they're just waiting to snap.
Yeah, and that's fair. But like the thing is most people that I've met, 85% of people never train a dog.
Right.
And then the dog is super annoying to everyone else. And it's just an animal. It's trying to figure out its boundaries. It's trying to figure out what to do. But if you have a well-trained dog, it's like one of the greatest things in the world.
It's amazing.
Yep.
It's truly your best friend, and it's amazing, and it's unfortunately that bleeds into other areas of society like kids, and circling back to the orphan conversation, right? I mean, an untrained kid is more dangerous than an untrained animal in some ways.
We
Maybe
got a whole couple generations of untrained kids.
Whole couple.
No kidding.
But the few examples of the adopted kids that we were talking about were trained kids.
they were, and that's the scary thing, right?
So let's go back to nature versus nurture for a minute.
Sure.
So with what you were saying, if you don't train your dog, you're doing a disservice to your dog, because it's just like having a kid and never teaching it how to ride a bike, never even teaching it how to talk, or respect adults. You're doing the kid a disservice. It's not going to succeed in life.
Absolutely.
So a pit bull specifically is a fighting dog developed in 19th century England and Scotland and Ireland. It's made with a bulldog and a terrier in ancestry, and it's also called the American Pit Bull Terrier now.
Mm-hmm.
And this dog, let's see.
While you're looking that up, I remember.
Hold on, because I got it.
Yep.
Hold on to that thought. So it was bred to bite and hold bulls, bears, and other large animals around the face and head for hunting.
Yeah.
They were used for this, for taking down.
Well, they had a
subduing-
purpose.
They had a
They're
purpose.
not
They
meant
were bred
for couch cuddles. Do you hear that?
They were bred for a purpose. And if
Yeah.
you guys know about dog breeding, you see a trait in a dog, and this can be a whole litter from multiple dogs from the same litter, but one of them has
Shows
a
extra
distinctive
aggression.
characteristic.
Yeah.
And one's more aggressive or assertive or dominant. That's the one you take and you continue breeding because it has the trait that you want. So you get these dogs, and what are pit bulls most known for, aside from tearing up children, apparently? They're most known
Junkyard dogs.
junkyard dogs, dog fighting rings, and who is
Michael Vick.
Michael Vick. So let's look at that.
Correct.
Michael Vick wasn't doing that with labs or golden retrievers
No.
or
Right.
poodles.
They're looking
Wonder
for
why.
they're looking for specific traits in a breed, and they are continuing to breed them in their basement, in their backyard. They are breeding these specific traits
They
into
are.
these dogs, and you wonder why so many
And
of
it's
these
sad.
dogs are in
Absolutely.
shelters, right?
Yeah.
It's because they have
This
a
is
litter.
why I say-
they get rid of the litter and keep the one and keep
Yep.
breeding that one. These dogs keep going back to the shelters. So now
That makes
you want to
sense.
get your daughter a birthday puppy, right? She's 8 now. You want to teach her responsibility. She falls in love with that adorable pitty at the shelter. But the problem is you don't know what traits have been bred into that dog and
That's a great point,
condensed
Justin.
into her for the last 10, 12 years, So it is, there's responsibility by the dog owner to train your dog and train it well. But the problem, if you're not getting a purebred, and you can get a purebred pit that are mentally stable, they're not going to snap like some of these. That
I don't know.
the genes have been diluted.
I still think there's instincts
regardless, I'm saying
in
there's
a purebred
both
pit.
go hand in hand. And for instance, you said earlier, shepherds, an attack dog.
Yeah.
You referred to a shepherd as a defensive
dog,
attack dog.
is what I was getting at. Yeah.
There's this video. There was I forget what organization did this. It was like an awareness thing, but they would do a test where they break into this person's home. When the person is home or not home, the dog is sitting there on the couch. They want to see how the dog reacts to a home intruder. What does this German shepherd do when someone kicks in the door wearing a mask? The homeowner is there in this video. They're screaming. The dog runs in the other room. This is a fully grown German shepherd,
Interesting.
but it had never been trained to attack or defend.
Yep.
It had been trained to play fetch and sit.
German Shepherds and Huskies are like two of the most intelligent dog breeds out
they
there. And I don't look at pits as the same way. I don't look at them as intelligent dogs. They're brute force.
They're brute
animals.
force dogs. Yeah, that's fair.
They're the enforcer, not even that maybe is a bad way to put it, but they're the gangsters of the dogs.
Well, and there's a reason. You ever see a cop with a pit bull? No, because they're not
And you would
they're not
think that's what they
trainable
would
like
need.
a German Shepherd. What kind of dogs do they have as protection or canine units or quote unquote attack dogs? It's a German Shepherd
Well, and
because they can call it off. You can't do that with a pit. Once
Right.
it snaps, it's over, man. And I
Well,
think I
and
sent
this
that
whole
video
thing-
to you of that guy like in a supermarket, and it's his own dog, and it's literally biting his dick off.
And it won't let go.
And it won't
There's
let go.
blood everywhere.
His pants are like around his ankles, and he's got blood everywhere, and everyone's screaming, and this dog won't let go. And according to the video, that's the owner.
And that's kind of this all started because that dog was attacking a horse to its own
Yes.
detriment the other day. That
Yeah.
you sent this dog basically just this horse and buggy carriage. It looks like it's at an apple orchard or something. Kids are on it, and this big fat pit bull just starts jumping at the horse nonstop, trying to bite its balls or something.
Yeah, but it looked like he was trying to get up to its neck.
It was going for the face, which is what they're bred to do, going back to what I
That
just
makes
read.
sense.
Yep.
And then the horse just keeps kicking the dog in the head. The dog's bleeding. It's still going.
Yep.
It's not stopping. Its
instincts took over.
This is why I stand
Yeah.
by my take. Anybody who you see own a pit bull, there's something internally with that person where they just got something to prove.
I think it's a status thing. I think it's a culture thing in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Right.
But I have friends that have had pit bulls, and the same family specifically has had multiple pit bulls. Anytime one gets old and dies, they get another one because they love that breed so much. And I think that they were getting purebred pit bulls. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
But these dogs were so friendly and just so loving, and they're very loyal to their families. And they can, they can be territorial, but any dog is.
Sure.
But so these ones specifically is the experience that I have with them. But
And I agree. The only experience I've had with practically, I don't know. I'm not a dog owner, so I don't see a lot of dogs. But being at dog parks and stuff, like I've never come across a pit bull specifically myself that's been off the rails in my experience. But all that said, like the stats don't lie.
I hate dog parks for that reason. That just scares me.
They are freaky.
It scares me more because like you made the point earlier, people don't train their dogs.
Well, and the other thing, like if you're 16 and you're, you think your 16-year-old would be safe with a dog, but like,
Sure.
based on some of these stories, if there's something that happens, it's like that dog turns into the Terminator and could just kill you. I mean, like now it sounds far-fetched because you don't see it much in the suburbs but it happens.
Yeah. What I was going to say earlier is in the interim period between my German Shepherd Siberian Husky mix and the Golden Doodle, I did a whole bunch of research because kind of the trade-off was, hey, we're going to make you kill this dog, but we'll get you another dog. Well,
It sucks because you really.
I was so attached to that dog, man.
Yeah, no
I
knock
was so
against
attached.
the Golden Doodle, but they're such a dopey breed.
It is a dopey look. It's a dopey looking dog.
No offense, it's like a poor man's Golden Retriever.
Yeah. Well, so the main driver
maybe not
behind
poor,
the
maybe a
Golden
rich
Doodle
man's
is
Golden
that it's
Retriever.
hypoallergenic,
Exactly.
and it doesn't shed, and so that was the reason we ended up going that route.
No offense to Golden Doodles, they're nice dogs.
Yeah,
Thanks to his
they're nice
mom not
dogs.
wanting to vacuum the.
That's honestly probably the selling point.
Yeah, it's a dog breed created for weak women.
Weak women and
housewives.
weak vacuums.
Yeah, but in that interim period, I got a whole mess of dog books from the library, and I'm like doing all this research on dog breeds, and the one that I really wanted was is it a Bernese Mountain Dog? I think that was the one Burmese Mountain Dog. That was one I
Big
really
fat dog.
wanted.
The Beethoven dog, right?
No, that's a
Mastiff.
Nope. Beethoven is it's on the tip of my tongue. Do you know the Beethoven breed?
Yeah.
I had a neighbor that had they always had one.
Saint Bernard.
Saint Bernard. There you go. Saint
yes,
Bernard.
the Saint
Big
Bernard.
slobbering, huge dogs,
drill
absolutely
machines.
massive dogs. They had one named Diesel. Great name for a big dog like that. No, but when I'm reading through these books, these books would list they'd have like a stat menu for each of these breeds, kind of like when you're playing Mario Kart and you're choosing your kart and it's like acceleration and control and traction and all that. They had these bars for each of these breeds, and so it would say right on there like how territorial, how aggressive, family oriented, boom, 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 all these stats on these dogs. So there's no excuse to owning a dog that is not fit to be around a family. And that's 99%. If you live in the city, that's the dog you should be getting. You live out in the country and the dog's going to be outside, do whatever you want, I guess.
Right.
That's the problem, is ignorant pet owners in general.
Yeah.
You should never take on an animal that you're not fully knowledgeable about and prepared, and your home is prepared to handle that dog.
Yeah.
Or snake or bird, whatever.
Exactly.
Don't even get me started on owning reptiles. Anyways, let's jump right into on this day in history.
This day in history.
Friday, April 5th. We got some interesting stuff on this day in history. Let's just jump right into it. 1621, the Mayflower sails from Plymouth, Massachusetts, on a return trip to England.
Nice.
I did not know it went back.
I didn't either. I thought it was a one-way trip.
Yeah, like we got out. Why are we going back? So
I bought a ticket to go home.
1806, Isaac Quintard patents apple cider. But you guys didn't know apple cider's been around that long. 1806.
I didn't know it was patented.
I didn't know it was patented.
Well, I think the patent expires after so long, so it's not patented anymore, obviously.
So some dude was just getting loaded.
Some dude was making bank off apple cider.
Every fall season when those sweaters come out on those, basic bitches.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Isaac Quintard, the original basic bitch.
Got a lot to thank him for.
This one's amazing to me. I will never not be in awe over Helen Keller. 1887, Anne Sullivan teaches water to blind and deaf 6-year-old Helen Keller by holding one of her hands under a dripping water pump and spelling out WATER in Keller's palm. She later goes on to learn how to read, write, speak, and graduate from college. That's unbelievable.
So
Blind
Standards
and
for college
deaf.
graduation,
You guys
to be fair, were much lower back in the day.
I think they're lower now.
So everyone talks about women not even graduating college till way later in history. Are we sure this is true? I mean, I think there's a conspiracy theory here.
She was faking it the whole time.
Did she even exist? I mean, this just sounds like a.
Oh man! If anybody's out there has tried to teach their child how to read, and you get frustrated, just imagine trying to teach that same child who is blind and deaf. That is unbelievable.
That teacher should get an award as well. No offense, Helen, you can't even hear this anyway. So.
It's an inspiring thought. Yeah.
But have you guys ever gotten those those twisted high thoughts of people talking about like how do you explain the color green?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like if you had to tell somebody who didn't know, even us who know what green is,
it's impossible.
How do I know that the green to me is the same green to you?
Well, my wife thought our son, he knows tons of stuff, but she thought he was colorblind because he was like, we're like, put this back into this. And,
yep.
And thankfully he's not. But it's like, how do you describe blue to a 1-year-old kid?
Right. You either see it or you don't. I mean, so it's just amazing to me that she's able to do all that.
It was incredible.
Moving
really
on.
A remarkable woman.
1923, Firestone, and this is crazy to me how old this is. 1923, Firestone Tire and Rubber Company starts producing inflatable tires. Firestone was part of the quote-unquote vagabonds, a group of American industry leaders including Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and others, who would vacation and collaborate professionally. He collaborated with Samuel Crowther to write Men and Rubber, the Story of Business in 1926, in which he reflects on Ford and Edison considering the causes of their success.
Men and Rubber? You sure that wasn't the birth control story?
Men and Rubber.
2.
Fun without barriers.
Yeah.
Well, fun with one barrier.
With one significant barrier.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing.
That is cool.
Fast forward to 1930, Mahatma Gandhi and thousands of followers reached the sea at Dandi and boil seawater to make illegal salt, marking the end of his famous 200-mile protest against the widely hated British salt tax. Kind of interesting. I didn't know Gandhi
really
was
need to
such
get in
a
gear for
rebel
figure.
Yeah.
Good work, Gandhi.
See, people really hate tax, but we don't do anything about it today. You know?
Yep.
You don't see anyone walking.
People can't even walk a mile for refusing to pay taxes.
All they do is stand there and wave a sign, or they sit in the road in front of my car.
They
go
wear
walk.
dresses about taxing more people.
Yeah, funny.
rich people.
Nothing here about Gandhi getting up on 694 and stopping traffic or anything like that. You know,
And then getting
Gandhi-
upset when a truck hits him.
Gandhi was
Yeah.
a peaceful protester.
So I thought this was kind of funny. This one was labeled "Fun Fact" for the day. Didn't sound all that fun, but in 1943, Chinese steward Poon Lim is found off the coast of Brazil by a Brazilian fisherman family after being adrift for 133 days after British ship SS Ben Lamond was torpedoed by a German U-boat. The Chinese sailor Poon was working as a steward aboard the British ship, the SS Ben Lamond, when it was sunk with the loss of all lives except his own. After a few hours in the water, he found an 8-foot raft with some food and a flashlight, which initially kept him alive. Although aircraft and ships did spot Poon Lim, he wasn't picked up until he wasn't picked up and survived his ordeal by catching fish and even sharks before drifting to the coast of Brazil, where he was saved by the fishermen.
Fun.
That
That
wild.
sounds a lot like, there's striking similarities to that movie Unbroken. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was in the military. He was at sea for a long time. You know, it should have been dead. Him and another guy were in a raft for, it's got to be like 50 days at least.
I can't even imagine spending a week out on sea.
But the worst part is then they get caught and are prisoners of war out of that. And so they get beat to shreds after.
Oh, man.
I mean, that's just unreal that they didn't die.
Fun never
Talk
ends.
about getting kicked while you're down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't even do a cruise. I like it. The ocean is
Frightening
an
stuff, especially for us
unbelievable
Midwesterners,
power.
dude.
Yeah, I mean, watching these giant ships get tossed around like a rubber ducky in a bathtub. It's unbelievable. So to just imagine being on like a wooden ship like the Mayflower or
Right.
being on a raft. Are you kidding me? No way. I won't even go on a giant cruise. I refuse. I do not want to go. I'll go out for like a day out on the ocean. That's nice. That's fun. Get me back to land where I'm supposed to be. But going out on these ships for multiple days, and I know the statistics,
People
it's
that
safe
sail
now
around
and
the-
whatever.
Yeah.
But dude, heck no.
And I
Ships
saw,
catch fire all the time.
yeah, they're sketch, and like you're paying like $20 to get on there for the week. That can't be good.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah. The margin there doesn't speak highly of the trip. That's for sure.
I came across a guy on Instagram today who claimed he was a middle school teacher and now is sailing across the ocean. I'm like, that's nuts, dude. Like, is he going across the Pacific? Because that is one of the scariest thoughts in the world to me, is being on this little sailboat, out of water world, basically.
Being on a large lake during the storm is scary. Like
Yeah.
I've been on a good sized boat on a large lake during a storm, and those waves that are whipping up on this,
And you could still see land in that instance.
and you can still see land. Yeah. I can't imagine doing what these guys did. Absolutely unreal. Moving forward a little bit in time, on this day in 1951, the Rosenberg trial was held. I believe we talked a tad about the Rosenbergs in a previous episode. The Rosenberg trial is where Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were sentenced to death and eventually executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing Prison in New York. They were the first American citizens to be executed for espionage during peacetime. Ethel Rosenberg was an American citizen who, along with her husband, Julius, became a central figure in the Cold War espionage trial. The Rosenbergs were accused of passing atomic bomb secrets to the Soviet Union and were convicted of conspiracy to commit espionage. Born in New York City to immigrant parents, Ethel became involved in labor and political movements, including the Communist Party. First mistake. She married Julius Rosenberg in 1939, and they were both arrested in the early 50s during the height of McCarthyism. Their trial in 51 became a global sensation and has remained a subject of controversy. Ethel and Julius were sentenced to death and executed in the electric chair on June 19th, 1953. Interesting. In 1984, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar breaks Wilt Chamberlain's all-time career scoring record of 31,419 points.
But we know what record he didn't break of Wilt Chamberlain's.
We do know what record he didn't break. Very true. Fast forward in 1987, Fox TV network premieres show Married with Children and the Tracy Ullman Show.
Married with Children was a weird but fun show to watch when you're like at home.
I've seen like probably less than 10 minutes of it in 1 minute clips as a kid. I remember my dad, when he would come home from
on
work,
like the weird channel, like channel 45 or whatever.
45. Yeah. He would come home from work and he'd toss the TV on in the bedroom when he was changing. And TV was not really allowed for kids when I was growing up.
But you're telling me kids these days are addicted to technology. Your dad needed to turn on the TV just to change his clothes.
Yeah. Well, he always had something playing.
Hypocrite. You know?
And
keep the silence at bay.
It was okay. This was mom-driven rule. But it was TV on in Dad's bedroom, so it's like, what are you doing in there anyways? But the older kids we'd try to sneak in there and, hey, Dad, I was work, when really we're trying to catch whatever he's watching. And the whole vibe to the show of the show that I got from my mom was that it was just this really inappropriate show
for the time, probably.
So I'm assuming it had like Simpsons vibes to it.
Oh yeah,
and stuff,
it was in that category.
But other than that, that's my extent of it. 1989, NBC's Late Night with David Letterman becomes first network TV show broadcast in Dolby Stereo. My grandma absolutely hated David Letterman. Her favorite late night TV show.
On him.
Anybody want to take a guess?
Is it a popular person? Johnny Carson?
Nope. Think newer. Color TV. He was around during Jay Leno and Letterman. He was on after those guys. So what do they call that? The Late Show.
It wasn't Conan.
She was okay with Conan, but this wasn't Conan. Is he Irish?
Yeah, he's Irish.
Craig Ferguson.
That
guy's hilarious.
Yep. That was her.
There's always clips of him like flirting with these just babes.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, she liked his accent.
Talk about having the Riz. Yeah, that guy had the Riz, man. He had the Riz.
So you came over here from the.
Yep.
So very those funny. Legs, do you know how to use them?
Yeah. So she would like Jay Leno, and then she'd watch Ferguson.
Is this your mom's mom?
This is my father's mother,
okay, that makes
no
more
longer
sense.
with us, but. The most amazing person. She would absolutely join us on a full cast and be with it on every topic we're talking about.
All right,
amazing
grandma.
person.
Everyone has that.
She could not stand David Letterman because of how left he was.
Fair enough.
She'd end up yelling at the TV. She hated that guy.
God bless your grandma.
Yep. Rest in peace. 1997, Steve Irwin's The Crocodile Hunter debuts. Steve passed away in 2006, pierced in the chest by a stingray barb while filming an underwater documentary film titled Ocean's Deadliest. The irony never ends.
I don't think I ever knew the title of the documentary.
I did not know the title either until looking this up.
I have actually been to his zoo.
Have you?
Unfortunately, he was not there, but his kids and his wife.
His kids are awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool too.
Oh, there's the oldest boy is like
maybe the younger one actually. He's the younger sibling.
The only boy.
Well, the oldest boy. So I'm still technically right.
Look at you.
So the funniest thing there is they were giving a presentation. You see the crocs and everything. They're doing all the different animals. The zookeepers released a bunch of birds that were supposed to like fly in the stadium, and they just flew away, took off, and they went for like.
Can you blame them?
They left the zoo, and all you see is some zookeepers sprinting out of the presentation.
All right, guys, it's a big break. Get out of here.
The birds. Crikey.
That's great. He was pretty much
supposed to happen this way.
Obviously celebrities had died in my lifetime.
That one hurt though.
Up to 2006. I didn't give a rip about a single one, unless there's one I'm forgetting of. He was the one that we watched religiously growing up.
Any kid
that was like a painful, like, you're kidding.
It's
like
a tragic event. Yeah.
When we found out, it was like, no, you're joking.
Any kid in a semi-conservative home loved that guy because it's clean and it's just good-hearted, wholesome entertainment. The man would smack Crocs in the face and back off.
He had the dream job.
Yeah.
And his reaction times are unbelievable. The stuff he would do with snakes and spiders. Snakes and spiders.
Snakes and spiders, the thing you see here is that if you smack the
Alrighty,
croc
mate.
right in the face, it just doesn't even.
All
doesn't even
right,
bother
so
me.
we're going to check the cloaca of this croc.
But his passion for life and for animals, I mean, it was contagious.
Yeah, no, brilliant bloke, that's for sure. Here's what I found interesting, and I didn't have time to look up any deets on it. 2016, PayPal announces it is canceling a $3.6 million investment in North Carolina after the state passes anti-gay legislation.
Elon.
Yeah, I don't know. Was he owning PayPal in 2016?
I don't
Did he
know.
own it then?
Probably
When
not.
did
I think he
sell it?
sold it off.
But investment into the state? Why is
I wonder what they
PayPal
mean by
investing in
anti-gay
a
legislation. Well, I think it's similar to you remember when AOC
Oh,
was.
I remember this because I actually remember going down. Was it North Carolina or South
North Carolina?
I remember going down to North Carolina around that time for a business trip, and there was this big deal that they did not have transgender bathrooms. So they weren't going to have a gender neutral bathroom at that time in 2016, and I think that's what
fueled it.
that's what was around that. We could double
Interesting.
check, but I remember that being a big deal. It's like, who cares? Just
Drop a
pick
comment
one.
below if you know about the bathroom thing. But
Take a dump and shut up. Just get out.
Why was PayPal investing $3 million in North Carolina bathrooms?
dude, you know what? They wanted those wet, warm toilet seats. That's what they were looking for.
Speaking of, never mind. I'm not going to go down there.
Some people's kinks. Jeez, Ben.
I was just going to bring up you guys remember the urinals at the Metrodome that were just
The
basically
troughs?
the troughs.
The trough.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just big, pigsties
Hard to
that
play
you
that.
piss into.
Hard to play that urinal game with those. Did you ever play that game?
No.
There was
Are
a
you talking
game-
like sword fighting with a stranger?
No. There's a game you could get on your phone. It was one of those like mini games. You could play it online too, like minigames.com or one of those things back in the early 2000s when online games
Like
became
Family
kind of a
computer.
thing. No, it was so you
No
you would
pun
have
intended.
like you would have a picture of urinals. There'd be like, I don't know, 7 urinals, and there'd be one person standing at a urinal, and you had to pick where your guy would go, what urinal he would go stand at. And obviously you don't stand next to the one guy there. So eventually the next level was there's 2 guys now. And so the idea is that you got to pick the furthest urinal from the people.
It's bro code.
It's bro
But
code.
they made a real game
In a
of
game.
it.
Teaching
Yep.
homophobia to children.
Yeah, or keep away from my urine. 2017 Pepsi ad featuring Kendall Jenner pulled after criticized for trivializing demonstrations. Do you guys remember this ad? It's like
don't.
all these people in the streets protesting, and it's all racial.
and she's
all
walking
this
away
stuff.
drinking pop,
And
right?
she walks into the picture with a Pepsi, cracks the Pepsi, and all of a sudden, all the problems go away, and everyone's like getting along. It's like, woo, Pepsi, just crack a Pepsi, and everything's fine. And people lost their minds over this ad.
What year was this? 2020?
2017.
Okay. That would have been
I
crazy.
like that ad. I think it's a good ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that concludes this day in history.
This day in history.
Well, today we've got a little fun segment for Midwest Nonsense. We've got the April Fool's edition.
Yes, sir.
And Ben's going to go ahead and lead us in that. Let's kick it off. A little game of Fool or Nah. The Midwest ain't big enough for all this nonsense.
All right, everyone. We've got a fun game for you. So you guys all know that Ben Shapiro has been in the news lately, right?
Quite a bit.
More than we care to want to pay attention to. I mean, who cares in conservative media what's going on? The infighting has to stop. But all that said, I thought let's do April Fools or April Facts. And we're going to do this by reading Ben Shapiro tweets
Nice.
and finding out which one is real and which one is fake. And truthfully, it may be harder than you think.
Are these just recent tweets or just...
They're tweets. They're dating back to, a couple of years ago. But, right. Thank you, sir. But I'm just going to read off a few, and you guys tell me, is it fact or is it fools?
All right, Uncle Bustin, we're going head to head here.
Ready, baby.
The first one. You think 2020 has seen its biggest twist? Wait until Trump develops anti-COVID serum using his own antibodies like Will Smith in I Am Legend and then wins 50 states.
Ooh.
Not facts.
Fake tweet.
Wrong.
It was a real tweet from October 5th of 2020.
May have been a real tweet, but it obviously wasn't a serious tweet.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Not serious, but real.
He was trolling.
All right, here's a new one. Ben Shapiro says, of course the Grammy cultural Marxists had to force us to watch some black queer female perform and steal the spotlight from Luke Combs' popular new country song. The woke war on straight white male success continues.
Fake.
Oh.
I'm going to say fake. There's no way he watched the Grammys.
No, it's real. Sorry. Sorry. Wrong button. So, no, it is fake. You guys were right.
Oh, good.
It is fake. So you got that one right.
Got us all confused there.
Whoops. Okay, we're good. Let's find another one, shall we? So this one.
You are fake news.
If you need any proof that American masculinity is under attack, just go and see a marriage counselor and watch how the conversation quickly devolves into a bunch of nonsense regarding the so-called sexual needs of your wife.
That's fake. That's got to be fake. I say that's so fake. Ben is a simp. I don't care what you say about him. The dude's a simp.
He's still never fully pleased his wife, though.
Yeah, that's right. That was a fake one. The next one. I'm big enough to admit that these fake tweets about me are clever, but they paint a very poor picture of my intimate relationship with my wife. You all know that I have 2 children, right? Paternity tested and everything. So you do the math.
Oh, man. I was thinking fake until you started the voice, and then it's like, wow, that sounds a lot like him. Bustin', what you say?
I think that one's fake.
I think that one's real.
That is real.
Real. Oh, wow. Bing, bing, bing.
Justin is
Wrong.
Not again.
Okay. This one dates back to the 2020 election. No matter who wins tomorrow, let's all remember the most important thing. The Last Jedi is a terrible movie.
True.
Let's all remember the most important thing. The
matter who
Last
wins tomorrow,
Jedi
gang,
was a terrible movie.
Let's remember one important thing. The Last Jedi was a terrible movie.
I think that's a real tweet.
Real tweet.
Correct.
Oh.
Correct. All right. Let's me see. Let's do one more or a couple more here. Today I learned that Leonardo DiCaprio dating a 19-year-old woman is the height of moral evil. Mostly from the same people who believe a 4-year-old can consent to a gender change.
Definitely true.
Yeah, I'm going to say that was a real tweet. All right.
Good job, guys. You're on a roll.
We apparently know Ben Shapiro a little too well.
Let's go. Another one from 2020. No, Trump has not already won the election, and it is deeply irresponsible for him to say he has.
Say it once more.
No, Trump has not already won the election, and it is deeply irresponsible for him to say he has.
Fake tweet.
Wrong.
Good job, Justin.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll end on this one. The idea that... Sorry, I can't read this in his voice. The idea that Sydney Sweeney's... I'm giving this away. This is so funny. The idea that Sydney Sweeney's boobs have ended wokeness is possibly absurd, or excuse me, is patently absurd. My sister has far larger and more beautiful breasts, and they have done far more for the right than some Hollywood harlot.
That is absolutely a true tweet from Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, no, we know that one's fake.
That's so funny though.
I've seen that one.
Here we go.
That's Ben.
I was waiting for the WAP tweet, but maybe that was on his show, not.
Yeah. I don't have that one
The one where
readily
he
available.
reads the lyrics to WAP.
Yeah, we should get that on the soundboard.
This is scientifically accurate.
I've
never needed a bucket in my bedroom.
Do not come.
Do you guys remember when all those pictures were coming out of his coming out of his sister? Her giant
bazongas.
Oh my gosh.
Those were fake, right? Fake.
No, she's pregnant.
The pictures were fake. I mean,
no.
I saw one where they were like,
they're huge.
They looked enhanced.
Dude, yeah, but maybe that picture was enhanced and messed with. But I'm pretty sure it was when she was pregnant and they were engorged. They
big,
were
beautiful bosom.
Was that,
they were a shelf
prior to her having a baby bump too, right? So I don't know.
I thought the pictures were from her baby shower, and I thought she had I wasn't there far along, but the whole internet was freaking out about it. And what's funny is you get the tolerant left coming in there, and how they jump on the whole objectifying women. Oh, but we can forget that when it comes to somebody from the other side, then all bets are off.
Feminism is partisan. Didn't you know that?
I'm getting to know that now. Yeah. So
anyway, that's what I got for Midwest nonsense.
The Midwest ain't big enough for all this nonsense. Coming up next, we're going to do the news, but we're going to take a real quick break because the news this week is so intense, we're going to need another drink. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thanks for hanging out.
All right.
It's a great song. You can't deny. That's a great song. All right, well, let's just jump right into the news. We've got some tasty things coming up. April 8th?
April 5th, right?
Gonna be tasty.
April 8th. Today's April 5th,
yes,
but the 8th.
yes.
So let's just jump right into it.
Good evening. I'm Jaime Smith. You're listening to Midwest Sense News.
Thanks, Jaime.
I love that that's Jaime Smith.
He's
mom was Norwegian.
He's under the radar. This is, we can't afford a U.S. grown anchor man.
I know Jaime's a good dude. I just get confused about his origin story sometimes.
Yeah, well, it might not be a true origin story. Those might be.
It might be April Fools.
Well, it might be a dead person's social, dead person last name.
Either way, he votes.
He's voting for sure. That's definitely a thing. So this week we've got April 8th and all the rumors surrounding the ellipse, and Cern and NASA and all this crazy stuff going on. Let's roll a clip here to get us started, get us some context, and go from there.
Now, why is this so important? Because CERN is about to start up the Hadron Collider, ladies and gentlemen, on April 8th. On the day of the biggest solar eclipse in American history, where millions of people are flying from around the world, they are going to collide these hadron atoms, these protons, these electrons are going to be collided on this day. Now, why in the world would they choose April 8th to do this? I have no idea. But this company is creepy on every level, and I'll tell you why. Not only is CERN in Cern, Switzerland, but I want to show you this because this is cause for, in my opinion, a cause for alarm, and here's why. If you take a look at where it's actually at, okay, A large portion of Cern is located in the territory of St. Genus Poli, probably not pronouncing that right. In Roman times, it was called Apollicum. The town and the temple were dedicated to Apollyon, the destroyer. So this is ancient Horus. This is Shiva. The town Apollyon literally is dedicated to the god of destruction, the god of chaos, the destroyer. And this entire Hadron Collider is right in the middle of Apollyon. Now, why is that so important? Because if you go to the book of Revelation, this is what we read. It says in chapter 9, verse 1, 2, and 11, to him was given the keys of the bottomless pit, and he opened the bottomless pit. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon. Now, you might not find that just a coincidence, but the fact that they've got this Hadron Collider, which some people, even very, very important scientists, are scared out of their mind of what is going to happen. Now, CERN will tell you on their website, we have no intention of doing anything wrong. Who has intention of blowing up the world? Who has intention of accidentally cracking open a time-space continuum and having something on the other side? Well, I believe they're not telling the full truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So take a look at this quote straight from the director of research at CERN concerning the exact purpose of this Hadron Collider. Listen to this. Quote, something may come through dimensional doors at LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. And out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of CERN, they tell you it's all for scientific research. No, they're looking for the God particle. They want to know what's holding the universe together. And ultimately, they're trying to get into time travel. They want to open up the curtain of what is behind our dimension and get into the multiverse. This is what they're after. They believe there are multiple universes happening and in parallel to one another simultaneously. And they want to tear that open. And they know that something has the potential of coming through it. Now, we just read out of the book of Revelation that the Apollyon comes out, that the doors of the deep the gates are opened up and crazy things come out of the deep. Could it possibly be, would it be that much of a stretch to say that maybe we're the ones that do it? Maybe in our effort in mankind to find a wormhole, to get into Star Trek world, to discover more and more and more and more, like the Tower of Babel, that eventually maybe we actually do open up the space-time continuum. We open up the doors of the second dimension and the demonic realm comes alive onto this earth. It's very possible. They just said that's exactly what they know is possible. So for what's really fascinating is evolution is dead. The scientists at the highest level now know there is a spiritual realm. There is another dimension beyond ours, and they're trying to tap into it. And my friends, the last time this happened was the Tower of Babel, and it didn't go over too well for them.
So what do we think? And my first gut reaction is everyone out there who is, this is conspiracy theory, this is not true, this is a whole bunch of baloney. CERN is billions of dollars. They're pumping billions of dollars into this. You cannot tell me that this is a fool's errand. This is just people playing around. No one plays around with billions of dollars. No one.
Well, and they just won a Nobel Prize, or what was the record that they broke 2 years ago with the Hadron Collider when they, the particle that they created or discovered. What was up with that?
What do you mean?
Like they hit what? Oh, sorry.
I mean, it definitely, they're not even hiding it. You know, I'm coming to this mostly from ignorance. I talked about this with my buddy this last summer for the first time, not even knowing this kind of thing existed, but talking about the God particle. And, you know, even this is from the Daily Mail. CERN tests world's most powerful particle accelerator, dubbed the Big Bang Machine, by smashing particles together at nearly 671 million miles per hour. So that was the first article that popped up for me. So they're working, you know, it even says here they're putting unprecedented energy to try and blast into existence massive new particles that are secretly powering our universe. So to me, it doesn't even seem like they're hiding that they are looking for the spiritual realm or something beyond. They're looking for what's powering this universe. We know that it's beyond just the physical
glue
state
that's holding the universe together.
Yeah.
So back in 1973, one of their first major discoveries was the detection of so-called weak neutral currents. And then the big thing that they did a couple years back was the Higgs boson. They discovered that particle, which they're calling the God particle, and essentially they're trying to replicate that or create a black hole by smashing these two atoms together. And to be fair, I watched this same video clip earlier, except it was from his actual show. It didn't have the spooky Halloween backing track, so it was easier to take what he was saying seriously. But to be fair with this, Cern has been doing testing again since the beginning of March. They do yearly tests. They've been testing for the last month, and April 8th just happens to be a day that they have another test scheduled currently.
Do you think it's a coincidence?
It could be. The test is a collision test, so they are going to be trying to collide these particles on April 8th. I don't know what time. And again, they're in Switzerland. The eclipse is happening here in our country, in a small portion of our country during a certain time of day. I don't know that there's a correlation, but if we want to get into the conspiracy theories, it absolutely would tie together. And it's only a conspiracy theory at this point, folks, because it hasn't happened yet.
Right. And I'm not an elite Revelation mind by any stretch of the imagination. Don't know the book back and forward. But you think about where society was when the Tower of Babel was built. Everyone was able to communicate with one another freely. People nowadays, your phone can translate. People can literally speak another language, and with AI, it can translate that person's language instantly to the other person. We're at a stage now where we're getting to the ability, that communication ability, and those barriers are being broken down at a rapidly fast rate. And God also said after flooding the earth and restarting basically once that he would not do that again, but that doesn't mean that the end of the world is not imminent. And the more I've heard about, honestly, mostly from like TikTok and other things of the sort, it does seem like a lot of these end time events are starting to correlate with where we're at in the timeline.
So two things along with that. There's two camps that I've seen when it comes to biblical prophecy. One camp being that, none of this is biblical prophecy because 99.9% of biblical prophecy has already come to pass. So we're just drawing empty conclusions. Or then the other camp being that, no, these are all legitimate prophecies that we're seeing come.
Well, and the hard part is, it was a vision. Revelation was a vision given to John, right? So we don't know from his perspective what he was seeing, and but we know that part of the Bible, the last book, is the one that still needs to take place.
Okay.
And so
that's the kind of the camp that we're going to fall into.
Well, that's not entirely. There are a lot of prophecies that have nothing to do with Revelation, but have to do with the end times. And I have a couple examples.
Well,
want to go
my point being is, I think the prophecies almost always, maybe they have 99.9% been fulfilled, but I think that 0.1% could be where we lie in Revelation. And I don't think anybody has a clear picture of exactly how it's going to shake out, given that they said the Son doesn't even know the day or the hour that the end will be. So Jesus himself didn't.
Yeah. So there's another interesting theory along the Tower of Babel that I remember seeing, and I was way younger, so I don't remember all of it. But the takeaway from this guy that I went and saw, his theory was that the Tower of Babel was not a very, 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 very tall tower.
Agreed.
Because if you remember the on its face, the story of the Tower of Babel was that they were going to build a tower tall enough to get into heaven, to reach the heavens.
In the Bible here, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth.
And so his theory was that it was not a tower. His theory was that during
They're trying to be God.
Well, trying to be God through technology.
Yeah.
So his theory was that at Noah's Ark time, we were basically at computers.
Yeah.
So it was a cell tower.
Essentially, it was
a 5G tower.
It was some type of technology, and now the new theory based on that theory is that it was some type of AI, because it was the culmination of
Everything.
Everything that they knew. And that's why God broke it apart and was like, nope, we're just going to make everybody speak a different language. And that way you can't get anything done. And I was thinking about that. And if you think, I don't ever remember reading about any, world wars or major wars during that time. And so if you take away war and the amount of resources that consumes, and you take away the language barrier, everyone is
unbelievably
speaking
how fast.
Production would be off the charts.
It'd be insane.
You've got everybody working together for the most part. You've got no wars. Resources aren't being absorbed needlessly.
And there's way less people.
There's a common goal.
And there's way less people, and there's a common goal.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if there isn't something to that theory of they were basically on AI's doorstep at that point, and that's when the slate was wiped clean with the flood.
No, I fully believe that. And there's evidence of, civilizations and technologies back
that we're still discovering even now.
We're talking about before the Ice Age, which is controversial to scientists, but they thought all humans back then were just hunter-gatherers.
Right, just cavemen.
Yeah, but they're finding buildings, they're finding structures and cities,
and structures and buildings that we don't understand how they even built.
Right, because we don't accredit them to having technology to do that back then.
Well, some of that we don't even have the technology to replicate now.
Yeah, but that's under the belief that they were just hunters and gatherers, not an established, intelligent, sophisticated civilization with higher technology.
Even with the lasers that we have now, we look at some of their carvings, and there's no way to get the precise carvings that they have out of some of the hardest stone we have on the planet.
Well, we don't have the patience to do it anymore. That's why we developed the higher technology to do it for us. Back then, it was an artistry.
But I mean,
they had technology beyond
even
ours.
The patience. Yeah. We're talking like lifetimes of patience to get these angles.
Well, that's why it took over 20 years to build the pyramid.
Want to know what's interesting though? I just looked in Genesis again. The flood happened before the Tower of Babel, at least in the order of the book. So
interesting.
I'm wondering.
Okay.
It's super interesting. So that must have been a pretty young population that instantly because humans would have to be reborn.
It doesn't have to be young. We don't know the whole timeline of Genesis. That could have been tens of thousands of years.
But what I mean is
when did it happen?
If the flood happened, you're going to have to restart humanity.
Right.
When did God limit the age? Because
to 120 or whatever?
Yep, because according to biblical genealogies, people would live hundreds of years.
I think that was post-flood.
Yeah, after the flood is when he limited the age.
Okay. So again, young is relative, because if you had people that were 200 some, 300 some, 400 some, 500 some years old.
I didn't mean young in the sense of age of people. I meant young in the sense of the human race. So that's how fast we progressed when there is no language barrier, because we've been gifted to be made in God's image. But now we're at this point where it's taking us to 5,000 years or something. Who knows exactly?
Well, if you believe the world is 6,000 years old.
Sure, but let's just say at a minimum,
even if not, think of how much technology has progressed in the last 100 years.
In the last 50.
We went from candles to electricity. We went from no flight to jetliners.
It's an exponential curve.
So if we can do that in 100 years, we can do a lot in 3,000 years.
What did they do in 3,000 years? Exactly. The other piece that I find interesting, I was hoping he was going to touch on it and he didn't, is NASA to launch sounding rockets into moon's shadow during solar eclipse. This is straight from science.nasa.gov. NASA will launch 3 sounding rockets during the total solar eclipse on April 8th to study how Earth's upper atmosphere is affected when sunlight momentarily dims over a portion of the planet. Why? Why are we messing with this stuff? Same thing with chemtrails. Same thing with this global warming nonsense.
Same thing with AI. Honestly,
same thing with AI. I think there's a lot of helpful things with AI.
Boys with too much money and free time. That's what they are.
I just don't understand this. We don't understand nature, yet we want to pretend like we do, and then we want to mess with it in a way that is potentially irreversible. And the creepy thing is they're calling these rockets the atmospheric perturbations around eclipse path, APEP. That's what NASA's calling them. But go ahead and do a Google search for APEP, A-P-E-P. APEP, also spelled A-P-E-P-I, was the ancient Egyptian deity who embodied darkness and disorder and was thus the opponent of light. The opponent of light and order or truth.
Very clever with their names.
And this goes back to that god that they were referencing, the god of destruction and chaos.
Yeah, so what are we supposed to think when there's Cern in that town that he described, with all of those ancient connections and ancient gods, and then you have NASA launching APEP rockets?
Pretty strange correlations.
I mean, talk me down here. How is this not giving all those... I don't want to talk you down.
I want to talk you up.
How is this not giving all of these flat earthers kind of a bigger platform? I mean, this is... Well, let's bring in the music. This is way too conspiratorial to be just a coincidence. I mean, this is too many things lining up at once.
And taking it from... Well, I'll let Justin talk, but taking it from outside that view, even, you got to think practically like what's going to happen on April 8th. We're going to have something. We have the eclipse, but is it, I just recall going back to the 2020 time frame of COVID, our lives changed in one day. We went from everything's normal to, hey, everything's closed. You're shutting your house. Shut up. And that was a really good reminder that you don't have to have things happen gradually. It's not a linear progression. It is a full stop. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't fully believe anything is going to happen on Monday other than a solar eclipse, which has happened thousands of times. But I'm kind of expecting something to happen.
Right.
Well, and so what's the layman supposed to think? Because
do,
but if it's just a basic solar eclipse and that's it, don't we fund NASA? Don't we?
We do.
This is public agency. Money.
Yep.
Okay. So what are they after?
What's the point?
Supposedly, minds more brilliant than all three of us combined are getting together in a room going, hey, we should take advantage of the solar eclipse and spend a bunch of money and fire off rockets to see what?
Yeah, I don't understand what.
You can't tell me. Again, money is the main driver here, right? Like, Occam's razor, all that stuff to give people the benefit of a doubt. Oh, don't attribute malice to what you contribute to stupidity and ignorance and all that. Okay. So if I'm trying to look at this from a common sense,
says that with the government agencies.
I know, right? But if I'm trying to look at this from like a Midwest sense standpoint, what's the point? Why don't we just let the eclipse happen? Because it's a natural thing and it happens. Ooh, cool.
Are we really
and then we move
worried?
on.
Yeah,
it's starting to seem like it's something that they want to take advantage of.
How do you not? Yeah, how do you not get conspiratorial?
How do you not read into this?
Like, you could do this other times. Couldn't you shoot rockets and test things at times that aren't in eclipse?
So
seems a little sus.
I should have been. I should be more prepared with the clip. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So the Simpsons also predicted this.
Of course they did, but I also wonder how many of those are fake. Just because I've never seen the episodes themselves.
Have you seen a lot of the episodes? I mean, there's so many episodes.
There's so many episodes. It's like the longest running cartoon ever.
I wonder if it's run. Okay, here's another conspiracy theory. So the CIA has had connections to television and Hollywood.
Right.
That's proven. It makes me wonder if they're given The Simpsons has burned out its relevance, for the last 20 years. No one really cares about The Simpsons anymore. But they've had so many predictions. It makes me wonder, is there propaganda from the government that they're dropping into the episode to predict some of these things because it's uncanny how many things.
Are you meaning like after the fact
or prior?
So but how do they know?
Well, I don't know, but like
Trump coming down the escalator. That's the biggest, most famous one.
Well, yes,
but have you seen the episode? Because that's what I'm saying. It's not difficult.
But if the episode didn't exist and they're just dropping it in after the fact, people would notice because there's people out there that know everything about all the seasons of The Simpsons. So if that episode isn't in their season, their full lifetime season repertoire, people are going to jump up and go, well,
and they're going to put angry comments on TikTok and no one's going to pay attention.
I'm kind of joking, saying this tongue in cheek, but is there like a dark arts involved with some sort of ability to see the future and
it makes you wonder.
Have some propaganda baked in because that's the whole point of what a lot of Hollyweird does is they throw stuff that makes us seem like, hey, this is far-fetched, this is crazy, but it's what they're doing. It's like the left, the Democrats will always say that the right is doing these evil things. Well, they're actually the ones doing them. Right.
And Nancy Pelosi, she outlined that during a press conference. She told everybody the game plan. Here's what we do. Here's our smear campaign. Yes. Here's how it works. We feed you a bunch of nonsense. Then you guys go report on it. And then what do? We're able to circle back and point right back. We're able to circle back Psaki and point right back at the report. Did you see what I did there? Circle back Psaki? Yeah. All right. Just making sure.
Let's circle back to that joke early.
Yeah. So, and then we're able to point at the reports and go, look, see, this is true because somebody reported on it. And then by that time, the American people accept it as fact because mainstream reported on it. And it's something that was reported on, not because it was true. It was just reported on.
And that's why you don't want mainstream media to be a monopoly.
Well, absolutely. And this is the danger of the internet, and we can go on about that. But I wish I had the clip pulled up, but there's a woman who outlines how apparently this eclipse thing happens in an episode of The Simpsons. And apparently the rapture is 40 days from April 8th.
Perfect.
And this is outlined in The Simpsons when the rapture happens. And she goes, it's even outlined that it's not 40 days from, let me see if I saved it.
Well, and here's the thing. You could always say, hey, The Simpsons is so many episodes, it's bound to, overlap. This is an article that came out 5 days ago. The Simpsons predicted the exact day Duke and NC State would play in the NCAA tournament 9 years ago.
Unbelievable.
How do you do that? I mean, that's
unbelievable.
That to me is where I'm starting to question, is this just chance,
No, for real, if they did it again, this one is big. Because guys, if this one that they've predicted, well, we know it's not predictions, we know what it is. But if this one is true, guys, The Simpsons may have just given us the date of the rapture. Hang on to your britches, boys and girls, you're gonna want to see this. Oh, but first things first, Tiki Talk, this is purely for entertainment purposes only. We're just having fun. You know how me and my followers get down. We're just goofing around, new boot, rapture goofing. Everything here is just speculation. The upcoming April 8th eclipse has everybody wondering, well, let's be for real, has everybody anxiously hoping and praying that this eclipse and everything about it might be exactly the signs and the wonders in the heaven we've been looking for. The signs and wonders that the Bible explains we will get just before, the rapture comes. As the Bible clearly explains that there will be signs and wonders in the heavens, the sun will turn black as sackcloth hair, and the moon will not give its light. The stars, they will fall from the heavens. I don't know about you, but that sure sounds an awful lot like an eclipse. But the stars falling from the sky, from the heavens. Maybe The Simpsons also helped us understand and figure this out. Biblically, the Bible used to be written in Greek and in Hebrew, and it was translated. Did you know that heaven also means from great height? Maybe it's another, biblical metaphor. Not meaning the stars in heaven, but, the stars in Hollywood that do seem to be falling one by one from great heights. Sure does seem recently all of the elite stars in Hollywood are being exposed for exactly what and who they really are. Oh, when it came to stars falling from great heights, could that be exactly what the Bible meant? But first, let's get back to the eclipse and everything about this upcoming April 8th eclipse that has everybody wondering, could it be time? Jesus states, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Like that, the Alpha and the Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. And when you map out the 3 eclipses, 2017, 2023, and the upcoming 2024, oh my goodness, what does it make? It makes the Aleph, the A. And the 2017 and 2024, oh, yep, that's right. It creates the Tav. Like so, like that. And this little area right here, X marks the spot where these lucky folks will get to witness 2 eclipses within these years. That actually lands on a place called Little Egypt. Oh my. But it's the upcoming April 8th eclipse and the path of totality that has everybody's jaw on the floor. As we follow that path of totality in the upcoming eclipse to find, well, that eclipse is going to go over 7 cities called Nineveh, 1 called Jonah, and oh my goodness, my friends, 1 called Rapture. But Auntie, what does that have to do with anything? Well, I'm about to tell you. As in Matthew 16:4 explains to us, an evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. Oh, did you know that America only has 7 cities named Nineveh? And all 7 of these Ninevehs in America will be in the path of totality of the upcoming eclipse.
Oh,
and once
word.
again, so will a city named Jonah and a city named Rapture. But did you know the eclipse actually also falls underneath the constellation Cetus, which translates into the whale? If you know, then you know. Now, most people know the story of Jonah and the whale, but a lot of people don't know or aren't familiar with Jonah and the city of Nineveh in the Bible. Allow me to explain. Nineveh was an extremely adulterous and sinful city, much like Sodom and Gomorrah. God sent Jonah there to preach and warned them, you have 40 days to repent, because if not... But good news, guys, they did. They repented and they were saved. But it is very key and vital that you understand the fact that Nineveh plays a large role in this, and Jonah's very specific warning to them, you only have 40 days from now to repent and turn from sin. This is a key and vital fact about this eclipse that's coming in April. Because guys, what I'm about to show you that the Simpsons actually showed us in their May 8th, 2005 episode, y'all, it's about to make your jaw hit the ground so hard it's going to smack down, snap back up, and probably slam shut. Yeah, just like that. But before I get to that, guys, it's vital we talk about this. We don't know how and we don't know who, but somehow the Simpsons, well, they know things. For years, people thought they had somebody who was psychic or a time traveler or somebody who knew. And there have been also rumors of predictive programming. You know, how sometimes those elites, well, they have to tell us what they're going to do before it happens. Pretty sure the elites aren't in control of the rapture, though, right? Well, whoever and however...
So just to pause this real quick, what she's mentioning about how the elites have to tell us what's going to happen.
Satanic ritual.
Satanic. That's, I was trying to think about it in a previous episode and I couldn't think of what it's called. Karmic retribution. That's what that's called, where they have to tell you. So they can't just, the example given is that they can't just sell you an apple
They have
and the apple's
no power
poisoned
over you unless
you give it to them.
Yep.
And so instead they would say, I'm selling poisoned apples. Ha 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 ha. And then you would buy it thinking it's, that's a joke. It's not poison. And then you'd buy it and you'd eat it and you'd be poisoned. And they're absolving themselves from that karma because they told you what they were doing and now that they're absolved. You chose to do it anyways. So that's what she's talking about. I just wanted to draw that parallel because I couldn't remember what that was in that previous episode.
The Simpsons do this? Well, I'll tell you what, they do it and they do it really well. Down to very specific details of monumentous moments that they share sometimes decades in advance. Y'all remember that one where Trump went down the escalator and it was so detailed, even down to the little boy dropping his sign. And don't even get me started on the episode where Homer literally solved the mathematical equation for the God particle years, if not longer, before even scientists could figure it out. If that's
Cern,
not enough to give them
Higgs
credibility,
boson.
I don't know what is. So the fact this upcoming eclipse goes over 7 cities named Nineveh, one called Rapture and another called Jonah, that is astounding, my friends. And the fact that these 3 eclipses map out the Aleph and the Tav, that is astounding as well. Leading many people to believe that this April 8th eclipse might in fact be the day of the rapture. But what if I were to tell you, with the help of the Simpsons, we might realize we are looking at the eclipse and the rapture dates all wrong. An evil and adulterous generation will be looking for signs, but there won't be any other than the prophet Jonah. Check, check, chickadee check, we have it all lining up with Jonah himself. But what if I were to tell you the eclipse might not be the actual rapture date, but that with the 7 cities named Nineveh, Rapture, Jonah, under the Cetus, which is the whale, knowing that Jonah preached to the people of Nineveh, you have 40 days to repent and turn from sin in order to be saved? Could this upcoming eclipse that has all of that encompassed in it actually be our 40-day warning from God? Could the rapture itself happen 40 days from the April 8th eclipse? Let's take a second and see exactly what The Simpsons had to say.
Why wife finds out?
It's modern times. Everyone's doing it. Where did my Christian limo driver go?
My pious husband is missing. The baby I chose to have baptized is gone. Mr. Thompson, what's happening?
It's the rapture, Shauna. The rapture. The virtuous have gone to heaven, and the rest of us have been left below.
Left below? Where have I heard that before?
It's the title of the movie.
It's everywhere.
We were
Behind
fools.
reference.
And because we rejected God, tacitly accepting Satan, we must suffer through the apocalypse.
I thought all religions were a path to God. I was wrong. What if the rapture is coming and I haven't led a good enough life?
God wouldn't spring the rapture on us unannounced. He'd send us some.
Marge is right. The rapture isn't coming. There haven't been any ominous signs. Follow me. Blood is raining from the sky. 3:15 p.m., May 18th. That's when the rapture will begin.
May 18th? That's 1 week from today.
Here's one, Revelation 6:13. Just before the rapture, the stars will fall to the celebrity salute to special blue angels.
I don't want to die next to Kathy Griffin.
I wouldn't either.
The stars are falling to the earth.
2, 1.
Goodbye, stupid Earth!
Huh. Interesting.
Please don't go! 10, 11, 12, 13, 12 apostles. But Jesus was at the Last Supper too. This changes everything. Wake up! The rapture is coming in heaven! 1. Oh, I'm wrong again! I'm nothing but a big fat... Woo! Can't enjoy myself knowing my family is suffering.
Oh, don't
tell me about family suffering.
Homer thought he had calculated the date of the rapture as May 18th at 3:15, but it seems his calculations were off by 1 day. And of course, I'm going to show you his calculations. Here it is. 13 apostles, 333 times 666, blah, 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 minus the 144,000. His equation lands him at 3:15 on April 19th. Y'all, I absolutely love how God works. I had 2 revelations hit me. Because when I was doing my deep dive a couple of weeks ago about the eclipse on April 8th, I knew there was a correlation between Jonah and the 40 days in Nineveh. I actually Googled, what is 40 days from April 8th, which came up May 18th. I noted it in my Bible as a potential watch date. But it dawned on me, just like Homer, he had May 18th. We need to remember the eclipse will happen on the 8th. From that date, 40 days. So starting the next day would be the full 40-day beginning, landing us on May 19th, 40 days after the eclipse on April 8th. Something else hit me. Gotta talk quick. You saw the 666 was in his equation. I always wondered about this. Here is wisdom. Let he that understandeth count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Why would we count the number up if we already know the number? And it says, here have wisdom. Let he who understands count the number of the beast. Meaning, when you try to do your equation and figure this out, you need to use 666 and count the number of the beast in your equation, just like Homer did. And now that verse makes sense. Is the April 8th eclipse not in fact the date of the rapture, but in fact the 40-day warning for the May 19th rapture instead? I guess we'll see.
Hey, my turn.
That is so much to unpack.
It is, so let's unpack it. So that was the Bible verse, one of the items that I was going to share in correlation, because we went over the science aspects of, you know, what's lining up with the 8th, between what they're doing with the moon and Cern. Doing their Hadron Collider. So with that verse, the sign of the prophet Jonah, how that correlates, she went over all of that plenty well. So with the trajectory of the moon and the path of totality that it's following, it just so happens to fall directly in line with the New Madrid seismic zone. You heard of this?
I haven't, no.
So it's a fault line on the lower Midwest and East Coast. It's pretty much Little Rock, St. Louis, Nashville. It's right up that little zipper. And it's strange to me that the path of the moon is following that fault line directly over top. Mm-hmm. And for those of us who don't know, today there was an earthquake in New York, New Jersey.
I heard, and I was like, I didn't even know you could get that up in New Jersey.
You can. So
you can get just about everything up in New Jersey
for a low price.
So there's a couple more correlations. Then what else do I got for us here? The as far as biblical prophecy goes, aside from Jonah that we were just talking about, do you guys know about the prophecy of the red heifers?
I have heard of it recently, but yeah,
they've found the one.
No, well, yeah. Break it. No. Break it down, Justin. Break it down.
They've found the red heifer that they're going to sacrifice.
They have 3 currently.
Yeah, I've heard there's 3.
They've picked one.
But describe for the audience what it is.
Okay, so
I'm like 99% sure they've already picked one because the Jews have started building.
They started building the altar in preparation. They haven't picked one yet, but they could pick any of the 3 at any time whenever they're ready to do the sacrifice. So the prophecy is a pure red heifer has to be sacrificed, and to make it pure, it has to be basically less than 3 years old. It can't have more than two hairs of a color other than red. So that's going to be pretty rare, especially as it gets older. These are from
Texas.
The ones that they found currently, obviously they weren't originally from Texas because they did this sacrifice back in the day. There have already been 9 pure red heifers sacrificed, but none have been sacrificed in the last 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. Reason being is that Jesus was the 10th sacrifice by sacrificing himself.
Right.
So this prophecy does not need to be fulfilled. No sacrifice needs to be made.
Because there's been a final one.
But the Jews don't have that perspective.
The Jews don't have that perspective because they don't
Jesus
believe.
wasn't, to them, Jesus wasn't the Messiah.
So the reason for this sacrifice is this 10th heifer or 10th sacrifice of the pure cow has to be made before the Jewish temple, the third temple, can be rebuilt. And what happens when it is rebuilt is that ushers in the end times because the Antichrist appears, and there's controversy over whether the temple is rebuilt and then he appears, or whether the sacrifice happens, the Antichrist appears, and he is the one who ushers in or finances or whatever the rebuilding of the temple.
Interesting.
So even though this prophecy was fulfilled by Jesus, since the Jews don't believe that, the temple will not be rebuilt until they sacrifice that 10th heifer. So it has to be sacrificed either way. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that sense. So they, within the last 2 years, had sent 4 pure red heifers over to Israel. One of them has already been disqualified. So the last that I've read is they still have 3, but they're so prepared to do this that they've already started building the altar. The other thing about these red heifers is that the Jews are not the only ones who believe in this prophecy.
Muslims.
The attacks on October 7th happened. Right. Hamas has admitted that they attacked because of the presence of these red heifers in Israel.
Okay.
They want to prevent the prophecy because they do not want the Jews rebuilding the temple and taking back over the Temple Mount.
That makes sense because I've always wondered. Well, it just seems the October 7th thing is so odd to me too. How they even got how the terrorists even got through that barrier, but maybe there's more to it than meets the eye. Certainly on the spiritual level,
I think there's more to it. But I mean, the Jews, the Jews fled Israel, the Muslims came in, the Jews came back later on. Now they've established Israel, and they want that to be theirs. That's their holy site. But in the meantime, the Muslims had made that their holy site. That's why there's this land war. So it's interesting that like you said, Drew, the altar has been built. They're pretty much ready at any time to be like, okay, this is the heifer, let's do it.
Well, and I have another piece of this puzzle too. This is more of a positive note in a way, but it does lead to
how do you spin this as
not that
positive?
It's still end time stuff. Well, here's the positive note. So this was Jesus's words.
Stolen my dreams.
Matthew 24:14, he said, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." And we've reached a point now where I believe by like 2050 or something there, or maybe even sooner with the invention of AI, everyone will have the Bible in their language. So we're at a point where the gospel literally could be in everyone's hands.
Pretty much like a mass saturation of.
And that's, to me, that's how I understand this verse and that's aligning with all these other things of like, and where I get this is because, I mentioned earlier, not even I can't remember the verse exactly, but it's like not even the sun knows the day or the hour that the end will come, and there's a lot of verses about that. I wonder if that is more so the actual end point, not the rapture, because it seems like all this stuff is lining up with some sort of correlation to a date when the rapture or whatever you believe happens. But there's so many thousands of years involved in the apocalypse itself.
Well, and I wonder when it comes to those verses saying that no one knows, I wonder how much is really lost in translation because
from the Greek.
Trying to be one of those guys that's like, oh, the Bible's not trustworthy because of all the translations and all the exchanging of hands. No, that's not what I mean.
We just don't have the same word in English.
Exactly. Sure. And Jordan Peterson's got a great bit about this. Yeah, he does. Where's his,
what the hell's wrong with you guys?
Yeah, but he puts that verse, the meek will inherit the earth in terms that I've never understood from the Western Christian church, because what do you think when you hear meek? If you know what the word really means, don't say that. but
meek rhymes with weak.
That's what you think of in the U.S.
That's what everybody thinks is the meek will inherit the earth, meaning the weak, the downtrodden, the people who can't, lift up a hand for themselves, and the betas, exactly, and
the pushovers, the victims. Yeah, why would we give the earth to them?
Yeah, when Jordan Peterson breaks down the Greek and the Hebrew, what it really means is those who have the ability, or those who have swords but choose to keep them sheathed.
The humble.
So not even the humble. It's those who are the most powerful, those who have their concealed weapon carry permit but don't use it. So I have the ability to blow you away, but I choose not to use it. That's a strong, that's beyond strong, because you're talking the ability of strength and then the strength on top of it to not use the strength.
Well, it's basically
that's strength times 2.
It's basically King David. He had all the abilities of the warrior.
He had the opportunity to slay Saul.
Yes, but his heart
chose not to.
His heart was a heart after God.
He had the opportunity to slay Bathsheba's husband and take her for himself, and he took it.
That's my biggest gripe when people throw up David as the hero. I'm like, oh yeah, the guy who killed another dude's.
The point of his story, though,
another chick's husband, just so he could. He was
a man. Hey man, nobody's perfect.
He was a man after God's heart.
That's every Western pastor's response
for sure. Well, and like his that's the beauty of the story in a way, though, is just how broken the people are that are these Bible heroes. Is they're all just humans who are deeply flawed and deeply sinful, but like God sees the heart, right? And David, even from his early part of the story, when Saul lost his position as king, it was like, because he's this humble but God-fearing shepherd, right?
Yeah.
And that to me, his life is very much demonstrated as, arguably the greatest king in Israel's history, because he had all the power to overtake and dominate, but wisely chose when he would fight and when he wouldn't.
Yeah. I'm gonna fire out some shots at some Christians here. Maybe I'm way off base, and you can leave a comment and rip me to shreds, but I think it's Matt Chandler. Does that name ring a bell?
That's a pastor, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's him who has coined the phrase and maybe even put it on t-shirts. When you go to Sunday school and they teach you all the Bible heroes, he's taken that and he's put it into his sermons, and he's quoted in saying, "You are not David. You are not Moses. You don't get to
Sounds like something he'd say.
Yeah, basically what I gathered from it is you don't get to relate to these biblical heroes. You are not them. When these verses come about that we take out of context, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. All that, you put them on your baseball, your son's juvenile baseball team's T-shirts and whatever. Mm-hmm. You're saying them in the dugout. We can do all things. We can win this game. We can do all things through Christ. That's his deal. Is no, you are not David.
Is what you're doing.
And so my gut reaction is, yeah, you're right. I'm not David. I didn't go kill another chick's husband just so I could bang her.
Right.
Like I get so lost in this fantasization of fantasizing about these Bible heroes as if they're such brilliant, great people. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that would be
an odd reading of the scriptures. Truthfully, if you read them and you're like, yeah, these people are just. They're
men.
Yeah.
I think
so. And this guy is held up in high esteem in the
Matt Chandler.
Theological circles. Yeah,
he is.
I mean, he's held up right up there with John Piper and John MacArthur, and all these other guys. And maybe this is me. I'm fully willing to admit this could be me totally not understanding what he's trying to get at. But he's trying to make people feel bad for relating to David, as far as like, you have those feel good pastors that are like, David was just a boy when he conquered Goliath.
Where is David in your story? What's the Goliath in your life that you need to conquer?
God will give you that power to conquer that Goliath. And then he steps in and he has this whole deal of, you are not David. You are not these people. How dare you think that you're up to this level of these people? And I'm thinking, what level are you talking about, dude? I've never sent some guy, for those who don't know, David saw a woman bathing out on her porch or whatever, and was like, and I'm sure she was naked, and he's basically like, wow, that chick's a dime. I want that. Oh wait, she's married. I can't have that. Oh, her husband's a soldier. All right, so what I'll do is I'll send him to the front lines, and he'll be one of the first people killed.
And the craziest part of that is too,
she'll be available.
He slept with her. And
before he died? Before he had her husband killed?
Yeah, he slept with her husband before he had her killed. And then he had her husband come home from war to be with his wife so that the pregnancy would be kind of...
I did not know that.
Mixed in,
he didn't want another bastard kid because he already had 60 concubines?
Yeah, exactly. But Uriah was so faithful to the kingdom that he was serving that he didn't leave the front gates, didn't go home to his wife, because he felt like, if my men are out there dying, I'm not going to go back and like bang my wife at a time like this. Sure. And then he still gets sent so to me, that even worsens it. It's like, here's this guy that
he was very manipulative with it.
The real hero.
Yeah.
And he's very remorseful, obviously, because I think the baby dies, as I recall in the story. Or
who's remorseful, the father or David?
David.
Well, he's sad after the fact. After he got what he wanted?
You know what that is? That's that post-nut clarity.
That's what it was.
No, I mean, sad because the baby that he got Bathsheba pregnant with dies. And, you know, but I think there's a lot. I mean, I think that the Chandler's take on that, though, is read things in context. Is not so much you're not this person. It's don't put yourself into the context of every passage of the Bible. Read it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think...
Do not idolize these people. Learn from them.
I didn't get that vibe at all, though.
I don't know, because I haven't heard any of his stuff.
The vibe that I got from him is that, like, these biblical heroes are so much better than you. How dare you put yourself on the same plane as these people who walked with God? And that's where it's like, when you continue reading their stories, it's like, what are you talking about, dude? If my wife came to you and was like, hey, I don't know what to do, my husband's been sleeping with somebody else, you would absolutely, no pun intended, metaphorically speaking, crucify me in that situation. Yet we're going to study the good works of David, who did far worse than me sleeping with somebody else.
Well, what were the good works of David? So if I were this pastor that you're talking about and I was putting this on a t-shirt, the meaning that I would have would be the good works of David, the good things he did, were when he was obeying God. When he killed Goliath, he was given that bravery and that strength by God. He didn't do that on his own will. When he was leading Israel to prosperity, when he was following God, is when he was being a godly man that should be emulated, that behavior should be. But you're not David. You don't have his faults. He's just a man. He's not your Superman or Batman. Don't idolize him. You learn to follow God the way that David did, and that's when you will have your power.
That I don't know if that was Matt Chandler's point.
Well, let's play it.
I don't know if it was his point.
But I
I've
think
never heard the guy.
You're dead on, though, is you're supposed to read, I think the Bible, when you're reading it like with an exegetical viewpoint, is to actually read it in its context and understand what it's saying about God's character and take that and apply that to your behavior. It's not to be...
Don't be the man, be the character of God that man was emulating.
Exactly.
Maybe
it's got a point
let's see.
Anyways.
What's funny is I've always enjoyed expository preaching. That if I gravitate towards...
And he usually is that way, I would say.
You know, and I'll... You can probably tell from the way I'm talking. I haven't been a churchgoer in years. I have issues with the church, and I guess that's something that I got to square away because I'm not.
God exists without the church. Don't worry about it.
Well, I know, but if we're going to get into the theology part of it, I should be going to church, and the human nature part of me would tell you, oh, well, I'm not going to church because I've got beef with them. And then the Christian response is, well, there's no perfect church. And I don't know. That's something that I got to square away with. But of the churches that I have gone to in the past, the expository preachers are the ones that I gravitate towards because I feel like they're the ones that give the most knowledge. So from the YouTube channel Expository Sermons, here's a 50-second clip of Matt Chandler, You're Not David.
The Bible's not about you. Here's what you'll keep infusing yourself into the stories of the Bible like you're the hero. Now, this happens all the time. All right, so I want to be straight. I love you enough to be straight. You're not David. All right? Your trouble in life is not Goliath. And if that's true, you're in a lot of trouble, bro, because you miss. You fling your stones and you miss. And Goliath's still there. And now what? Well, I had 5. You'll miss all 5. So if you view the scriptures through that lens, that really all the superheroes in the Bible are actually you, then man, you put a weight on your shoulders that, listen to me, you will not be able to bear. Jesus is the greater David. Jesus is the greater Moses. Jesus is the greater Abraham. It's the whole point of the book of Hebrews.
So it's kind of like what I said, right?
It is.
I think it's kind of like what I said.
To me, he's saying you are not the heroes of the Bible. How dare you put yourself in their shoes? He called them superheroes.
No. He didn't say. I took that same thing completely differently. So these people are looking at those characters as if they're superheroes and then relating to them and then wondering why, oh, God's giving me their toughest battles and why can't I win? Because you're looking at these completed stories in the Bible. You're looking at those stories that are already done, and you're seeing what the great men did and wondering why you can't do that same thing when the focus is wrong. No, don't focus on the people that God was working through. Focus on the work that God was doing.
I agree with you, Justin. I think that is the point of the scriptures. I took Matt Chandler's, his little speech there, or his sermon, in more of the way you took it, Drew, where I'm like, he's looking at David as though David had some sort of special superpower. But the whole point is that he, to your point, Justin, he wasn't the one with the Spirit of God came upon him to allow him to do these things. And
the way I look at it is the only reason his stone landed is because God allowed it to.
And God forced it.
It's not because of David, and maybe that's your point, and maybe that's Matt Chandler's point.
Is don't look
but the
at
way
these...
he's framing it.
And he makes it sound like you don't have any skill sets that are. Here's the thing: there's people that have lived on this earth that haven't been written about in the Bible that have done more miraculous things for humanity than the people that were written in the Old Testament.
Sure.
I mean, Mother Teresa is not in the Bible, and she's regarded.
I don't know anything.
I don't really either, but I don't want to be so ignorant as a non-Catholic here. But you know what I mean? We know of her as a great humanitarian who did, and there's people who have done, there's the Bonhoeffer in Germany who helped save Jewish people in the Holocaust. These people that are, by all means, heroes in modern society, but they're not going to, but even still, we're not those people, but we have the whole point is if you have the Spirit of God in you, you're able to do things outside of your human capabilities, but it's not because your human capabilities had any part of that actually coming to fruition.
The truly righteous don't consider themselves as heroes.
Exactly.
These acts are not theirs.
Exactly.
They are just the tool.
Hindsight heroes.
Hindsight heroes.
Right.
Hey,
good call.
Hey, you like
good
that?
name for the episode.
We should put that on a shirt.
Dibs.
Midwest Sense. Hindsight heroes.
Yeah,
I love that.
These characters wouldn't want you thinking of them as heroes either. They would say, don't look at me and my actions. Look how I'm flawed. The Bible portrays how I was flawed. I got this dude killed because of my adulterous drive, my kink, my voyeurism. I had to enact that. Don't emulate that. But look at what God did through me. That's what you should. That's your superhero, and that's what he said. Jesus, the Jesus factor in these men is what should be emulated.
Here's just a clip from couragewithgrace.org. I have no idea what this is, but I'm trying to read through this as you guys are talking. Whoever wrote this says, I differ on Chandler's conclusion of the message. His conclusion is that because the Bible is not about me, I cannot be David. I believe we can emulate David and should. We should embrace the idea that it is good to relate to many people in the Bible. Chandler points out that if Jesus is David, Goliath is sin and death, then who does that make me? The scared Israelite. Honestly, I can definitely relate to this. Sometimes I'm a scared Israelite. This is a perspective I haven't thought about. We should cherish the Bible and hold it with honor. When Micaiah 6:8 tells us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly, is that a calling for us? I believe it is. Now, this is not directly to us, but it is something we should absolutely do. Many of the Psalms are written by David. In the Bible, the prophet Nathan confronted David about his sin. If we are never David, how do we read Psalm 51 about David repenting from his sin? Would it be wrong of me to say, well, I'm not David, so I don't have to repent? I think that would be error. There are times when we are David. Sometimes we kill our Goliaths, and sometimes we fall into sin. It is rare to find a hero in the Bible without flaws. To me, it makes them more relatable. This shows us that the Bible is true. You can be like David when he has failed. You can be like David when he succeeded. The hero story of David is wonderful because David gives the glory to God. I believe that Chandler's heart is to remind us that we cannot always make ourselves the hero every time we teach the Bible. Jesus is the ultimate hero. To Bustin's point, here are my thoughts. While this is good, there is nothing wrong with preaching that we can be like David. Jesus lived a perfect life on this earth to save us from our sins and to be our example. Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. Should Peter have taken the other disciples aside and said, you're not Jesus? No. This theme of laying ourselves down like Jesus did is something biblical. The Apostle Paul told the men in Ephesus, husbands, love your wives as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. Ephesians 5:25. Was Paul being narcissistic and trying to make the men of Ephesus the hero? No, he was simply using this as an example. When a preacher says, be like David, have courage, you're going to defeat that giant, realize that this is something that God wants. Rod Saunders from the YouTube channel Jew and Greek makes a good note by saying Matt seems to want to cast Christians in the role of the cowering Israelite soldiers with David, representing Jesus defeating sin and death. But didn't he say that the Bible is not about us? If that's the case, then nobody in this story represents the believer. But the way I see it, David is the Christian who acts on the word of God and sees victory, while the others are the Christians who live in unbelief and defeat. Good point, Brother Rod. The wonderful part about David is that God calls us to rise up and be bold, take a step out in faith and fight. So I don't know. He goes on quite a bit. I don't want to read it all.
I saw his message for the heart of what he was trying to say, and I get why it is misconstrued or misunderstood. And he maybe presented it in a different way, but I
it's kind of funny because you always go to expository.
This sums up my beef with the church is that, like, if you're going to deliver a message with intent, make sure you're intentional. Like, well, I should not be able to misconstrue what he's saying.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing. You don't usually come across...
And this guy's held in high esteem
expository
in
preachers as the ones that are making kind of weird claims. I mean, I go to a church where we do go through the books of the Bible, and then we actually take out points of like, how do you apply this based on what it's telling you to your life? But I appreciate that we actually, that we don't even put verses on the screen. You have to actually open the Bible yourself, read through it to actually physically see it. But all that said, I mean, it's interesting how usually you're looking at these churches that are just charlatans, very charismatic, trying to do things to like be smoke and mirrors and make money. And those are the bad ones. But then you also can get too far off the rails where you're like, you can't apply any of this. There's no hope. This is just and it's interesting. It's like these people know a lot about God, but do they actually know God? I
agree. Yeah.
And that's the scary thing is people can know theology better than anyone, but they've never actually had a relationship with God.
Are you reading it like a textbook?
Yeah.
Or how are you reading it?
And I appreciate that style to some sense. I mean, I'm gonna butcher this next point, and we should bring it up again when Ethan's in town, because he's actually the one who explained this to me, and it blew my mind. And this is expository study of the word. He was telling me about our depiction of Judas is all wrong, because how do we the Western church describes Judas as if he betrayed Jesus for money.
Right.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of our understanding? Would you agree?
Yeah, if you haven't looked into
pieces of silver, right?
40.
Well, they just read that and then move on. They don't really talk about
Any guesses as to what Ethan brought to my attention as the real reason why Judas betrayed
I've
Jesus?
To you guys about it.
Okay, then you don't say anything. If you don't know, you can talk.
The real reason Judas betrayed Jesus was because Jesus predicted it before it happened.
Okay, but that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Somebody planned that.
So, but if you didn't know any better, you'd read the story, or you'd go to church and they'd read the story to you. And the assumption of every church I've ever been to is he did it for money. He did it for the 40 pieces of silver or whatever.
You're not Judas.
The perspective that Ethan gave is that us in the West, at least, give zero context to the time to understand why Judas did what he did. According to Ethan, and again, sorry, Ethan, if I'm going to butcher this, Judas did what he did, not for the silver. He did what he did because he was trying to push. So you got to remember, what was the Messiah supposed to be? He was supposed to be a warrior. He was supposed to come in and solve all the injustices. He was supposed to come in and slay. That dude was supposed to be
take care of
freaking the Terminator coming in and taking care of shit. That's what he was supposed to be. And then when Jesus shows up and he's a nice guy and he's healing people, I know he overturned tables and stuff, but he's healing people.
Only 2 tables.
And he's feeding the 5,000 and he's doing all his works and his miracles. Judas looks at this and is like, how can I speed this guy up? How can we usher in what the Messiah is really supposed to be, or at least our interpretation of what he's supposed to be? Riding in on a white horse, big sword, stabbing people. I mean, really doing justice here. And
we might see that later in May.
And we might see that coming up on May 19th. May 19th. Yeah. And so apparently Judas's goal was politically driven. It was, how do I usher in? How do I work?
Which is ironically exactly what the Jews are trying to do, to usher in the end times and their Messiah.
Their Messiah. Yeah. How do I work this angle to push Jesus to be the guy who he's really supposed to be, according to our perspective? And that was what he was doing. He wanted to turn him in so that, boom, guards show up, they go to arrest him, and the guy, Jesus throws off his cloak, whips out some dual wielding swords, and really lets everybody have it. He wanted to show him your real strength.
Jesus to try to say, hey, get in the fight.
Yeah.
Don't let him just hit you that.
Right.
I could see that.
And part of his reason of having that perspective is he goes, you got to imagine, Judas was one of the 12. These were guys that lived and breathed their friendship. This was a brotherhood. If you had a traitor in the midst of how close these guys were, you'd sniff them out like that. Right. I mean, you would know. None of these guys had any
They
inkling.
were so shocked.
He was his angle was not to betray his I mean, like growing up in Sunday school, the depiction
if
that
he
I
got
always,
what he wanted to, he wouldn't go off and kill himself right away.
Right.
You know, that's
exactly. The depiction that I always got of Judas was that he was jealous of Jesus and he was lurking in the shadows and is like, oh, look at all my buddies love this guy and I can't stand him. How smug is Jesus coming up in here and using all his magic powers. That was the Judas that I was fed my entire life. Right. Then Ethan comes in with this perspective, completely blows my mind. Judas was a friend to all of these guys. This was a close brotherhood. He wasn't out there trying to get his friend killed. He was trying to edge him to run for president. I mean, he was out there trying to put a political spin on Jesus's career.
So then in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he led the soldiers to Jesus, kissed him on the cheek, then what happens?
Enlighten me.
Jesus turns himself in.
Right.
Peacefully.
And I think Judas, I may be so bold as to say internally, he's hoping Jesus is going to throw down now.
But he didn't. And then what did Judas do?
Well,
he goes
eventually
and
went and hung himself.
Right. Well, it was before Jesus was crucified.
And Peter gets pissed and cuts the Roman's ear off.
Was it really before he was crucified? He hung himself?
Jesus heals the ear.
As far as I recall.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think it happens prior.
Yeah, while Jesus is in captivity.
To me, that screams unbearable guilt.
Yeah,
but guilt over what? Because he doesn't wait to see the end of the story. He doesn't wait to see if Jesus brings down the temple.
Well, but didn't Jesus allude to one of you among here will betray me? Doesn't he allude to that?
He does, and he talks about Peter denying him 3 times, and man, it's a good read. We got to go through that again. If that's the season.
If that was Judas's goal, was to trigger Jesus.
You'd think he'd run off and party.
Well, no, not even. He didn't wait around to see if Jesus would do that. I would understand if he killed himself after the crucifixion and before Jesus rose again.
What are you getting at?
I'm saying if his goal was to trigger, Schwarzenegger Jesus, he didn't wait to see if it happened.
Terminator Jesus.
He turned in his savior and then killed himself.
I'll be back.
He did not wait to see what else would happen.
Are you disagreeing with Ethan's perspective?
I would get that if Judas killed himself after the crucifixion, thinking that nothing else would happen. But I don't know.
I'm going to look that
was
up.
the timeline.
I think the timeline of him hanging himself doesn't change anything for me. Because.
Why would he feel guilt if he was like, okay, great, Jesus is in captivity. He's about to destroy all of these people. Pilate, the whole government, the Roman Empire. Jesus is going to bring them all down. I can't wait. But no, because he goes and kills himself.
He could have easily gotten the
But he didn't.
Man, I'm about to use Gen Z language. I friggin' hate this. I feel like he could have easily gotten the vibe from that first interaction where Jesus is being arrested, and
thinking that Jesus was just
he knows. He's like, oh man, I screwed up. I just hit a domino effect. All of the prophecies that I know, all of the hinting that Jesus has given that one of you will betray me. All of these things are starting to come to fruition. I can see the writing on the wall. Also, another biblical.
Yeah.
I'm even looking at a commentary on it. It's like he killed himself as he was filled with remorse, but not repentance for the betrayal of Jesus.
Is that biblical or that's someone's commentary on it?
I don't know. I think it's more commentary.
Well, I mean,
do we think Judas is in heaven?
I've always wondered that. I want to err on the side of no, because I don't think to your point, if he did kill himself prior to Jesus going to the cross,
so
how does he even
why
know?
did he kill himself? Like you said, because of his overwhelming guilt. Why did he have guilt if he intended to betray Jesus, but did it with the pure intention of triggering ultimate Jesus in his final Jesus. Pokemon evolution, but he didn't even wait to see if that happened. Why would he feel guilt? He did what he intended to do. He would only feel guilt if it didn't have the result that his heart was doing that for, right?
So if he didn't feel guilt, why did he kill himself?
Right. So it doesn't really line up with.
No, I'm asking you, what would be the answer then? If he didn't kill himself out of guilt.
And that's why the timeline matters. He would have only killed himself out of guilt.
Here in just a sec.
Because there's only two options. Either he meant to do it because he wanted Jesus to suffer the fate that he did. If that was his intention, that wouldn't cause you to be suicidal. That would cause you to be somewhat psychotically celebratory because your desired outcome is exactly what you're getting. You're saying he doesn't know the outcome.
He did kill himself prior to the execution of the cross. So let me read this because I think he did potentially repent. So it says when Judas, this is Matthew 27, when Judas, who had betrayed him, saw Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. To me, that sounds like repentance. What is that to us? They replied, that's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. He went away and hanged himself. The chief priest picked up the coins and said, it is against the law to put this into the treasury since it's blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. And that's kind of the end of it. You don't really get much more. And then it flips back to Jesus before Pilate. So he didn't even. So
here's my new question then. This brings up a whole new interesting topic.
Who was he repenting to? I mean, just God himself, I suppose. But
I guess I would say, because you kind of answered, you wouldn't think that he would be in heaven.
Well, I don't know that.
I know we don't know.
Sure.
But the greater point that I'm trying to get to here is there's two views of Christianity, and I actually know a guy who's on the other spectrum of my perspective, and I think it would be also you guys. I think you would be on my perspective of this, but maybe not.
No, guy. That's his name.
No, actually, the guy that I know is from Moldova. And he goes to a Russian church and they do everything in Russian and they're very, very strict and, more Orthodox. And, so you mentioned, no, you might not think that he would be in heaven. And then, then you read the verse. It sounds like he was, remorseful.
He acknowledged that he sinned.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if, and this is the conversation that I've had with my good friend, he's of the perspective that repentance is not a one-time thing, which I would agree with on its face. Repentance is not a one-time thing.
Correct.
But he takes it so far as to say that, let's say, you repented a week ago and you've had a week's worth of life. Obviously you've sinned within that week. You get into a car accident before you've had your next chance to repent. You're going to hell because you did
Isn't
not.
that the Catholic view? I mean, I didn't go to.
That's how I gathered it from him as well.
Since my last confession.
Now he is very much against Catholicism.
Because I don't find that in the Bible. That's such
with Catholicism. I asked him, well, what do you think about once you're in his hand, you can never be removed. So kind of like once saved, always saved. And then that obviously brings up the whole other topic of, you have Christians renouncing their faith. And like, I grew up and I realized that this is all just a joke and it's all a big fraud. And this is just to control the masses. And obviously that brings up the question of, were you ever really a Christian to begin with?
Right.
That's a whole nother topic. So, but in his perspective, if you die without having repented of all of your latest sins, you don't get the golden ticket.
And I don't see that in scripture at all. I think that's like adding tradition on top of it.
I'm sure he has verses that he would reference.
Sure.
Forgive me for bringing up his position without being willing to defend it.
You're good.
But that would be that was his take.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. I used to, when I was a kid, I thought that was true too. I just was like, oh man, I swore last week. I gotta re-accept Jesus into my life.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that diminishes the work of the cross in its totality.
And so, to finalize my point, when I brought up that question, do you think Judas would be in hell or in heaven?
He thought the sin of suicide
internally, my gut reaction is immediately heaven.
Sure.
Because he spent the entire time, like, I'm not diminishing his one mistake. I don't want to be like, oh, it was just one mistake. Obviously, it was not one mistake. But even if he didn't repent and didn't have that remorseful act at the end where he throws the silver down and is like, I don't want this, I've screwed up. Even if he didn't have that, I'm assuming he had faith through that entire
You're forgetting a big thing.
What's that?
No one had sacrificed themselves for his sins before he died. He died before Jesus' sacrifice.
Yeah. I wonder if
his sins were not forgiven when he died.
Did having to sacrifice for your sins that only started after Jesus
only after Jesus tore the veil,
was murdered
and made confession to a priest irrelevant, or committing an animal sacrifice and burnt offering irrelevant.
Interesting.
Jesus took the place of that.
So because he didn't run out,
his soul was already in hell before Jesus' death.
And if you're going to look at things from a Calvinist perspective, that's pretty sad.
Well, and part of me thinks, who knows? I look at God's character and I just think you never know, because it's such a redemptive story in general. Sure. And we don't have Jesus's dying on the cross without Judas. That is something that had to happen.
That's why I think it's pretty
Jesus
sad.
Jesus was the second sacrifice. God sacrificed Judas in order to sacrifice Jesus.
Ooh.
If you think about it in the Calvinist perspective.
If you get really deep into it, yeah.
Yeah, and
these are good conversations. I mean, they're ultimately, there's no clear answer, but I do think that topic you talked about earlier of like needing to, I definitely renounce the belief that you'd never need to repent after you've been saved. I know I was in a church very briefly that was of that nature, and it was just a disgusting atmosphere of people
that get away with
once
whatever
you're
they
saved,
want.
you don't need to repent.
Yeah, like, hey, you doing this is not living in God's promise. Is like, no, you are like, we're sinful beings still that need sanctification. And I find that I've been closest to the Lord when I've actually been humbled enough to realize, hey, I'm sinful, I need your help. And like that I need to preach the gospel to myself again, instead of being like, yeah, I'm in this free zone and I'm going to be this spiritual little God. Like, it's literally this called a little God theology, where they like, I've got the powers of God. I am that superhero that Matt Chandler was getting upset about. So I get how there's the swings in the pendulum of like, you are not David. You aren't going to go do like crazy things. And then there is the other side of it where it's like, you can do whatever you want. And like, the funny thing is you could heal 1,000 people, but if they never put their faith in Jesus, which has been shown to provide you salvation eternally, what's the point? Like, great, your knee feels better today, but I don't know. So it's kind of the works without the core meat of the equation.
Yeah, I hear that.
I don't know. All you theologians, chime on in.
Please do.
Maybe we're way off base.
Send us some new verses.
Maybe we were way too sinful and had way too much to drink, and we don't.
Let's do a quick recap. So what we have coming up on the 8th, we have a solar eclipse.
Launching 3 missiles.
We're launching 3 missiles at the moon. We have the Devil's Comet coming nearby. We didn't mention that earlier because it's not supposed to be at its closest point to the Earth, but it comes around every 7 years. The red heifer is about to be picked. They're preparing the sacrifice. We just had an earthquake in New York and New Jersey today.
Then we have Cern.
Going to do another.
And I know we didn't touch on it, but go out there and Google search Cern ritual, because it is wild. Demonic. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. Again,
this is why atheism is like nonsensical. If you're atheist, to me, you're just not looking deep enough into the people that are doing these things behind the scenes, because they're Satanists.
I base the whole conspiracy thing on how, like, you can say it's a conspiracy, but if I see a bunch of people dumping a bunch of money into something, that's not a conspiracy. You get a bunch of teenagers in a basement messing around with a Ouija board. Yeah, fine. Okay, that's just people goofing off. You got people putting billions of dollars into something, and then they're very publicly open about it. Not a conspiracy. People are putting money towards what they believe in. You vote with your dollar, and so go watch the ritual that they did. It is it looks like a Cirque du Soleil event. They've got guys in horns.
We need to get Alex Jones on the cast, guys.
And seriously, that's what this stuff sounds like.
Cern's trying to turn the frogs gay.
He wasn't wrong about that. Okay?
He wasn't wrong about the frogs.
Steven, listen to me. All right, CERN has got they've found the God particle. All right, and NASA, NASA
the communist demonic.
You know what NASA means in Hebrew, don't you? We all know. If you don't know, go ahead and go out there and look it up. Okay, but they're about to launch 3 missiles at the moon during this eclipse. All right, and if you don't know, you know now.
Dr. Jones,
and go look it up. APEP. That's what these things are called. This is the ancient god of destruction. I'm telling you. Steven, listen to me. Rogan, Joe, you know me. I drink. I know I drink quite a bit, but that's because I'm so high on life all the time. I need the depressant.
But all things aside, like what Alex Jones is describing comes true. It's just 5 years ahead of time. 5 years.
Joe, do you know about Bohemian Grove? Have we talked about this before? I actually been to Bohemian Grove.
That's a wild story. If you ever, but anyways, all that said, we got to follow up on this.
Dr. Jones.
Hopefully, we have the chance to follow up on this.
Hopefully.
Oh man. Well, we got 40 days. We got till May 19th, guys.
So hopefully there's no massive earthquakes from the New Madrid seismic zone during the eclipse where
hopefully there's no radiation that's burned us up.
Millions of people across the U.S. will be concentrated on that one path. Hopefully there's no EMP that locks down the grid, all those millions of people away from their homes and families in the middle of nowhere where they don't belong.
And to mention all of these coincidences on an election year.
Go figure.
Let's also, I don't want to keep dragging things on, but doesn't it seem like the election is irrelevant this year right now? Like, how much have you heard of the election?
There's been high up generals saying that there won't be an election.
That's what I'm saying. You fast forward 4 years before this, we were talking Biden, Trump all day, every day in the news. I don't feel like I've heard anything. It just seems like it's not going to happen.
They're not doing anything new or exciting. Both of them are winning the nominations in every state.
It's true, but doesn't it just seem so quiet for an election year?
It is too quiet.
It's too quiet.
Well, and partly because that what are they going to do for the debates? Biden's not going to debate.
Exactly.
How can he debate? The dude can hardly stand. They got to pump him so full of uppers for him to get out a full sentence.
Cocaine Biden debating
Jill Biden's husband,
seriously,
Dr. Jill.
Literally, you got Hunter backstage prior to Biden going out for any sort of serious speech or like the State of the Union, telling him, Dad, you got to take your medicine.
Here, Dad, take a peek at on my laptop real quick. That'll get you going.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I don't know. Maybe we're way off base, but go ahead and join us next week when we do our follow-up to how April 8th ended up. Go ahead and check us out on TikTok, Instagram, all those things. Whatever. I don't know. We're not on Bookface.
No.
BoobTube. Check us out.
Find us over there at the bar.
Smash that like button. Find Bussin' at the bar. He might buy you a drink.
Nope.
Nope. Give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let's continue the conversation. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll go from there. We'll see you guys next week.
Stay safe.